Chapter 644. What? Even the Rafale fighter jet was taken down by him? In the French command center, President Sanchi, the Minister of Defense, and many generals were stunned and could not believe it. The Rafale fighter jet developed by the French company Dassault was the trump card of the French army. The Rafale fighter jet had a wide-legged infrared sensor and a CCD camera. It was also equipped with a powerful BF-2 radar that could track 40 targets and intelligently analyze and strike the most dangerous targets. The Rafale was equipped with a 30mm cannon that could fire 2,500 rounds per minute. The Mika air-to-air missile could intelligently track electromagnetic and infrared signals and launch an attack. It could be said that the Rafale fighter jet was recognized as the king of the third-generation fighter jets. But now, these ace mecha had been taken down so easily by one person. His strength has increased. He only had one flying sword before, but now he seems to have a lot more. An intelligence officer's face was paler than a corpse that had been dead for 3 days. He has indeed improved. A major general of the Air Force who had carefully studied Jiang Tian's information murmured with a dispirited face. According to our analysis, before when he was in Japan, it was a little difficult for him to take down helicopters with his flying sword. The speed of the flying sword could not exceed twice the speed of sound, but now, it is obvious that he has achieved it. This was the result of an increase in strength. When he encountered the 28-man mixed brigade in Japan, Jiang Tian was still at the 5th level of Chi disciple. It was a little difficult for him to deal with ordinary cannons and howitzers with the Manjin Sogo, and he was seriously exhausted. And at that time, because of Chinger killing her way into the cabinet, the other party did not send out the supersonic fighter jet. Presumably, if the other party had sent out the supersonic fighter jet, Jiang Tian would have been more passive. But now, Jiang Tian had completed the 7th level of Chi disciple and was only a step away from the 8th level of Chi disciple. His strength was 10 times or 100 times stronger than before. At this time, he could break 1, 2, and even 3 times the speed of sound. Coupled with the many flying swords, dealing with the supersonic fighter jet was like chopping vegetables. He is so strong, this is terrifying. President Sanchi's face was pale as he wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. For the first time, he doubted whether his choice to fight to the death with Kang Tae-chu was a wise decision. After defeating this wave of fighter jets, Jiang Tian did not continue to fight. He released 3 disposable flying swords to kill the remaining 3 fishes that had escaped the net. At the same time, he stepped into the air and his figure suddenly turned into a golden light that penetrated the heavens and the earth, continuing to rush toward Paris. Seeing Jiang Tian enter the shooting range. The few artillery anti-air regiments of Caesar that were stationed 30 kilometers away from Le Mans opened fire at the same time after receiving the order. At this moment, to Jiang Tian, ordinary guns were completely useless. Jiang Tian was basically flying at an altitude of 1,000 meters. At this height, the bullet had no more power. Only this kind of ace artillery force air defense regiment could cause some damage to Jiang Tian with modern artillery fire. Fire! The commander of the military base gave the order. The 155mm self-propelled howitzers, TRF-1 towed guns, and self-propelled rocket launchers hidden behind the fortifications and bunkers opened fire at Jiang Tian. There were even soldiers carrying rocket launchers and firing at Jiang Tian. In an instant, thousands of cannons roared. The rain of fire cut through the night sky and covered Jiang Tian. There are hundreds of cannonballs. Even if Zeus was here, he would be blown to pieces. The commander of the base was full of confidence as he watched the cannonballs on the screen fly toward the red dot that represented Jiang Tian. Open! Facing the dense artillery fire that blotted out the sky, Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows and suddenly pulled with both hands. He used the 1,000 gold sword technique. Whoosh! Hundreds of cannonballs instantly broke free from the guidance system's control. The warheads were deflected to the sides, allowing Jiang Tian to rush past. A huge crack appeared in the bullet screen. However, the cannonballs were controlled by Jiang Tian's secret technique. Without losing momentum, they exceeded the designed range and shot into Le Mans City. Rumble. It was as if thousands of bright fireworks were blooming in the dark night sky. The white European-style building of Le Mans City was instantly torn into ruins by the soaring explosion and fell into a sea of fire. The mayor, Jean Ran, and many other city officials were blown up to the point where not even ashes could be found. The reason why Jiang Tian showed no mercy was because, the mayor had once said in an interview that he would fully support France's fight against Sidonie. He was willing to participate in the war at the front line and declared that he would adopt a policy of genocide against Sidonie. Oh my God, what's going on? The cannonballs didn't hurt him. Many commanders of the Kaiser artillery battalion looked at the figure in the sky that was getting closer and closer. They were so scared that their binoculars fell to the ground. The rain of bullets seems to have been torn apart. They have all shot into Le Mans City. How is this possible? Most of these cannonballs have a range of 10 kilometers. How can they be shot 30 kilometers away? He can't be a real god, right? Many soldiers were stunned, as if they had seen a ghost. They forgot to fire and stood motionless like clay statues. These French idiots, what are you looking at? Don't you know to run when you can't beat me? In the blink of an eye, Jiang Tian flew over the artillery battalion. He smiled disdainfully and patted the sky-devouring magic gourd at his waist. A transport ship floated out and was then activated by Jiang Tian's 1,000 gold sword technique. The transport ship, which weighed more than 1,000 tons, covered a large part of the night sky and the stars in the sky. It turned over and smashed toward the headquarters of the Kaiser artillery battalion like Mount Buzhou. This is the garbage transport ship of the New World. The commander of the station was shocked at first, then a trace of grief and despair appeared on his face. He said to himself with a dull look, "Ha, we have offended the god Sidonie, and we have finally received our retribution." Boom! The transport ship, which weighed more than 1,000 tons, fell from a height of more than 1,000 meters. Its power was so terrifying that it was like a huge meteorite falling from the sky. Boom! The ground trembled, and the transport ship rolled 2 kilometers like a bowling ball before coming to a stop. Be it the barracks, the fortifications, or even the tanks and cannons, all of them were crushed to pieces under the crushing pressure. Then Jiang Tian threw out a few large fireball and thunder talismans. Suddenly, the fire rose to the sky and lightning flashed. Clusters of fire with a radius of a few hundred meters or even 1,000 meters bloomed like a magnificent red flower. The headquarters and the entire military station were instantly turned into ruins. Less than 100 soldiers survived out of the 3,000 soldiers. Jiang Tian didn't even look at the survivors. He turned into a golden light again and rushed toward Paris. Even in World War II, the French Republic wouldn't be so vulnerable when facing the artillery fire of the German army. In the burning city of Le Mans, a retired veteran of World War II stood on the roof of a building and looked at the direction of the Kaiser Artillery Air Defense Regiment with an old-fashioned military telescope. 10 minutes. More than a dozen fighter jets and dozens of helicopters were shot down by Jiang Tian with disposable flying swords. 20 minutes later. Jiang Tian defeated the 8th line of defense. He destroyed hundreds of armored vehicles and tanks with thunder talismans and fireball talismans. Thousands of soldiers were killed. Half an hour later. Jiang Tian, like a super hurricane, defeated the 7th Armored Brigade stationed in the Southwest Theater of Operations and destroyed hundreds of cannons. This also announced that the French Army's defense line in the Southwest Theater of Operations had collapsed in 2 hours. Paris was close at hand. Sidonie's military has declared war. French Marine Corps, fire at Sidonie immediately. When Jiang Tian began to attack the hinterland of France. The fleet of the French Marine Corps, which had arrived near the equator of the Pacific Ocean, received the order of the French Ministry of Defense to immediately launch a long-range military attack on Sidonie from the outer sea area. Boom! Boom! Supersonic fighter jets instantly broke the sound barrier and flew towards Sidonie. Whoosh! Whoosh! Cruise missiles, trailing orange flames, rose into the air from the surface warships and shot toward Black Africa, Sidoni, San Juan, and other large cities. These cruise missiles were designed to have a range of more than 2,500 to 3,000 kilometers, and their accuracy was very high, with a hit error of less than 30 meters. The entire Marine Corps carried nearly 1,000 of these cruise missiles. What was more terrifying was that several of them carried nuclear warheads with the equivalent of 200,000 tons of TNT. And this time, more than a dozen of them were launched, enough to cover the entire Sidoni. All the buildings in several large cities were razed to the ground, and all the creatures were killed. There was no sign of life. Go! Zhang Qianlei, flying in the depths of the clouds, stepped on a flying sword, raised his eyebrows, and took the lead. More than a dozen disposable flying swords broke through the air and flew toward the cruise missiles. Each flying sword interweaved a sea of thunder and lightning with a radius of a few kilometers in the sky. The sea of thunder and lightning was extremely hot, with a temperature of thousands of degrees in the core area. More importantly, the electromagnetic waves and radiation were powerful. As soon as the cruise missiles entered this area, the GPS system was immediately seriously disturbed and became like a headless fly, deviating from the fixed trajectory. When the French missiles entered the detection area of Sidoni's air defense radar, the Sky Army stationed in the North Bay area of Sidoni immediately intercepted them. Boom! Many Hwasya S-400 air defense missiles and Land Shield 730 close-range defense cannons fired at the same time. Instantly, missiles and artillery shells shot out of the muzzles, crossing the sky and covering the cruise missiles like dense raindrops. At the same time, air-to-air missiles with long tails were launched from dozens of J-8 fighter jets to intercept them. Many fighter jets and cruise missiles of the French Marine Corps exploded in the open sea 200 kilometers away from Sidoni's territory. Awesome! Awesome! In a J-8 fighter jet, a blonde Sidoni Air Force fighter waved his fist excitedly and cheered. This group of air heroes was recruited from all over the world by the Sky Army. Among them, there was no lack of ace pilots from the world's major military powers, no less than the French Air Force. Chapter 645. These cruise missiles are very advanced. They have compound guidance. In the command center of the Sky Military Force, Zhang Qing'an's face turned serious. This compound guidance is based on inertial guidance. Then, through the terrain matching system, the flight path is predetermined. During the flight, the GPS satellite navigation system will constantly adjust the course and finally find the predetermined target through digital image comparison. Zhang Qinzhen wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said with emotion. Thanks to Mr. Zhang's long-range thunder talisman interference, we would not have intercepted them so smoothly. We would have definitely caused some casualties. Zhang Qianlei's thunder sea strike is equivalent to digging out the eyes of these cruise missiles. Qinzhen, it seems that Dharma artifacts have a very bright future. Hua Qingtian next to him encouraged, if your Coelian system is developed, we will be even more powerful. We won't even be afraid of the United States. We are almost done with the research. Zhang Qinzhen smiled confidently and said, the United States? If the Coelian system is really put into use, we won't even be afraid of an alien invasion. However, there were still 2 French fighter jets that broke through the heavy interceptions and attacked Sidoni's North Bay area. These 2 French fighter jets were very sneaky. They flew at low altitudes at high speed to avoid Sidoni's military defenses and launched long-range attacks. Boom! They fired a few cannonballs at a military base. Suddenly, flames soared into the sky and dozens of people died. I really can't let him down again. In the dense forest, Huang Linger, who was meditating cross-legged, suddenly opened her eyes and looked at the unscrupulous fighter jets in the sky. Her clear eyes burned with fighting spirit. Kill! A soft shout came out of her delicate red lips. Huang Linger suddenly stood up and used the divine withering art to its fullest. She waved the heavenly source wooden staff. Swoosh! The primeval forest within a 10-kilometer radius trembled. A green aura filled the air like the rising clouds. It was very beautiful. A jade-green vine condensed in the air. It was crystal clear and beautiful like a jade sculpture. However, its lethality was amazing. The green vine shot out more than 10 kilometers in the blink of an eye and pierced through the two fighter jets. I hit him. Looking at the flames in the sky, Wang Linger happily waved her fists and jumped up and down. But in the next moment, her delicate body trembled slightly. Her face was filled with pain, and blood actually seeped out of her mouth. Her divine art of withering glory was a mid-range attack technique. Attacking from such a distance was too taxing on her. She couldn't bear it, and her meridians were damaged. What? The cruise missile missed. All the fighter jets have crashed. Sidoni's air defense is so powerful. How is this possible? On the ships of the French Marine Corps, many commanders and soldiers exclaimed in exasperation. When they were about to launch a second attack. Why aren't you kneeling and begging for mercy? Your master Thousand Thunder is here. Suddenly, there was a burst of wild laughter. Like a thunderclap, a green flowing light shot over. His wild laughter shook the heavens and the earth, causing everyone's ears to rumble. The azure light hovered in the air, revealing its true appearance. It was Zhang Qianlei with many flying swords on his back. Without another word, this fellow urged in his mind. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Disposable flying swords flew out in all directions like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers. These disposable flying swords could break the sound barrier. In fact, many of the close-range defense cannons and anti-air missiles could be destroyed. But the key was that these flying swords could make strange movements that were even more terrifying than anti-ship missiles. Many ships activated many anti-missile systems, anti-air missiles, and close-range defense cannons, but it was useless. The disposable flying swords easily dodged them. In an instant, they were plunged into a sea of lightning and fire. In just a short minute, the command systems of many ships were electrocuted until black smoke billowed and all of them collapsed. Many ships floated on the sea like dead fish that had lost their lives, unable to move at all. Zhang Qianlei laughed and jumped onto the deck of the leading ship. This fellow swaggered all the way as if he had entered an uninhabited land. He roared loudly, "Where is the commander? Your fleet has been taken over by me." He flaunted his power and was extremely smug. "Hurry up and give me a plate of foie gras or caviar or something. Don't you French people like this? God, it must be a god. Sidonie really has a god." This made Paul and the other French marine elites look at him with their mouths agape, their hearts filled with horror. A monster that could fly in the air, break the sound barrier, and throw thunder-spewing swords with a raise of his hand. What else could it be if not a god? All of this had long exceeded their scope of understanding. It could only be explained by supernatural power. Many of the French marine elites instantly gave up resistance. They obediently threw away their weapons and stood against the wall. They did not dare to breathe loudly or move at all. Even if they were fierce people who had walked out of mountains of corpses and seas of blood. At this moment, in the face of this supernatural power, they were scared out of their wits and shivered all over. The soldier with the tattoo on his arm was so scared that he wet his pants and could not stand still. "Master Taoist wants to eat French food. Don't you understand Huaxia language?" Seeing that they looked at each other and ignored him, Zhang Qianlei was very unhappy. "Barbarians! You deserve to die." He frowned and without saying a word, the second-generation flying sword flew out. The flying sword flew across the sky and made a strange sound. Blood gushed out like a tide and a dozen people, including Paul, were beheaded in the blink of an eye. "Your Excellency Sidonie, I am the Commander-in-Chief of the Marine Corps, Olivier. I know Chinese." At this time, looking at the bodies on the ground, the Commander-in-Chief of the Marine Corps could no longer control the fear in his heart. He walked out of the cabin and came to the deck. He stepped forward and bowed deeply. He lowered his head and squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. "Please don't kill us, God. We have a lot of caviar. Please feel free to enjoy." In the age of the mobile internet, there was no paper that could cover fire. There were many witnesses of the war in the hinterland of France, and the news quickly spread on the internet. I heard that there was a military conflict between Sidonie's armed forces and us in the port of Bordeaux. Have you heard? Someone asked on the internet. It's true. My lover went to meet the hostages and is now missing. I'm so worried. Oh my God. There's a sea of fire and so many corpses. I'm afraid thousands of people have died. It's a mess. It's like hell on earth. That's too despicable. The despicable black devils and yellow monkeys even shot down the military helicopters. I'm at the scene. God Sidonie has appeared. He can make more than 10 large transport ships disappear. First, the citizens near the port of Bordeaux spread many photos and news on the internet. What God? That's impossible. At the beginning, the people of France thought that this was a regular battlefield and did not believe in the legends of God. They were filled with righteous indignation and clamored to capture Sidonie and turn them into France's colonies. They wanted to turn the black devils and yellow monkeys into their slaves. But at this time, even more shocking and terrifying news came. Did you see that? I think I saw many fighter jets take off and heard explosions. Yes, the Le Mans government building was bombarded by many cannonballs and turned into ruins. How is that possible? Sidonie's black devils still have the ability to attack the hinterland of France? That's right, but it seems like the French did it themselves. To be precise, it was the Kaiser Artillery Battalion. Our own people fighting their own people, this is too ridiculous. Then, many netizens followed up in Angers, Le Mans, and other cities where Jiang Tian had fought. When Jiang Tian pushed toward Paris, he was thousands of meters in the sky. It was also night time, so many people could not see clearly. They could only see a golden light. For a moment, many people did not realize that this was the action of one person and thought that it was a large-scale war. But everyone knew that there was a war in France. Soon after, even more shocking videos and photos began to spread on the internet. The 8th line of defense was destroyed. I saw a garbage ship fall from thousands of meters in the sky. Watch the video if you don't believe me. This video was very clear. Deep in the clouds, a large garbage ship fell, and then the earth shook. Oh my God! This transport ship must weigh 1,000 tons. How could it fall? How is this possible? What's above the garbage ship? It looks like a golden figure. The transport ship is a ship from the New World. Could it be that God Sidonie is returning it to us in this way? It can't be a god, right? That golden light might be artillery fire. At first, some people did not believe it. The Kaiser Air Defense Artillery Regiment's position has collapsed. The 7th Armored Brigade station has been destroyed. I only saw one person, and he can fly. I saw it too. That's God Sidonie. But gradually, more and more video clips were released. Could it be true? Could it be that aliens are attacking Earth? Everyone stared at the screen in disbelief. The entire Southwest Theater is full of explosions and seas of fire. All the military bases of the Army and Air Force have been destroyed. It was destroyed by one person. Sidonie's military strength can't be so strong. My God, could it be that God Sidonie really exists? When the news spread, the whole of France fell into a deathly silence. Everyone was terrified. The Southwest Theater. That was the theater with the strongest defense in the entire France, except for the Paris Theater. In terms of equipment, individual quality, and overall combat strength, it was famous all over the world. But now, it was destroyed by God Sidonie or aliens. Guys, I heard that God Sidonie has really appeared. As long as we take photos of it, we will definitely win the Pulitzer Prize next year. Everyone, do your best. Go to the scene immediately. Levi, the head of the Reuters news agency in France, rushed into the office wearing slippers and striped pajamas. He excitedly slammed the table and shouted at the reporters. Chapter 646. Not only Reuters, but soon, all the media around the world reacted and sent their war correspondents to the scene. Originally, the relationship between France and Sidonie was tense. All the media had already sent their correspondents or increased their editorial staff. However, after President Chen Yang announced the return of the ship, everyone thought that the war would be over and they would have to return empty-handed. They were very disappointed. Suddenly, the big news came out. All the correspondents in France were so excited that they almost jumped up. Suddenly, all the major TV stations and online stations around the world stopped their programs and broadcast related news. According to the latest news, Sidonie's military has suddenly declared war on France. Sidonie's military forces have landed at the port of Bordeaux, France, and are advancing rapidly toward Paris along the Angers and Le Mans line. Now, Sidonie's military forces have broken through 8 defense lines and destroyed many military bases. The exact situation of Sidonie's military forces is unknown. The BBC, Associated Press, CNN, and other major media around the world reported the news immediately. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all the major global portals opened special columns and paid close attention to the news. In an instant, the world was shocked. Countless eyes looked toward the Atlantic Ocean, Europe, and France. In the Western Hemisphere, everyone who was at home was staring at the scene of gunfire on TV. On the streets, pedestrians stopped and looked up at the big LCD screen on the outer wall. In the subway, people who were watching the news on their mobile phones suddenly screamed. In the Eastern Hemisphere, countless people who were sleeping were awakened by those who knew what was going on. They turned on the TV and watched with interest. Serves them right. France is a garbage country. It pollutes the environment and bullies the African people. Damn it. I don't have any sympathy for France. This is karma. However, when did Sidonie's military force become so powerful that it can even crush France? This doesn't make sense. The United States, Russia, Japan, many people who knew the cause and effect cursed France. Some were gloating, some were shocked, and some were confused. Meanwhile, the dark world was in an uproar. It was as if a ladle of cold water had been poured into a pot of hot oil. Shocking. Kang Tae-chu has declared war on France. They have broken multiple defense lines and are about to attack Paris. The observer spoke. Zhang Qianlei, the Taoist master of the Republic of Huaxia, joined forces with Sidonie's Sky Army fleet to subdue the French Marine Fleet. The French Atlantic Fleet is here to help. The battle is still going on. Sidonie is a place of prosperity. The workers are working through the night to build a new country. Square dancing is very popular here. All of France's aerial military attacks have been intercepted. So far, there have only been a few casualties. Seeing this news, all the experts of the Dark Association were shocked. They exclaimed and discussed it among themselves. France. They are one of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. In terms of military strength, they are second only to the United States, Huaxia, and Russia. They are on par with the United Kingdom and can be called the 4th strongest military power. Good heavens! Kang Tae-chu has made history by going to war with France and invading France. This must be the reason why Sidonie and Kang Tae-chu issued a global recruitment order some time ago. Someone sighed. It turns out that he is really prepared to challenge the current world order. I really envy those experts who have joined Sidonie's army. I wonder if they are still recruiting. I want to join. Some experts scratched their heads. Tonight belongs to Kang Tae-chu. He has made history. Many experts exclaimed in shock. They were extremely excited. They stared at the screen and searched for relevant news as if they were about to witness history. 2 hours later, Jiang Tian killed his way into the Paris war zone and arrived at Versailles, which was only 23 kilometers away from Paris. Jiang Tian ascended to the sky from the port of Bordeaux and destroyed 8 defense lines and more than a dozen military bases. He crossed 500 kilometers and killed his way there in only 2 hours. But these 2 hours were enough to be recorded in history. At this time, the entire Élysée Palace, the Ministry of National Defense, and the headquarters of the various military regions were in a mess. The phones connected to the front line rang one after another. There was no time to answer. Information officers had to shout until their throats were broken to let their commanders hear their voices. Many cabinet members and generals were trembling. Their faces were pale as if they had lost their parents. Oh my God! He is only 20 kilometers away from Paris. The Paris war zone commander's eyes were red as he stared at the red dot representing Jiangtian on the green screen connected to the satellite. His face was so solemn that it seemed as if water was about to drip out. The Marine fleet has been completely controlled by the enemy. We have lost contact. The Atlantic fleet was accurately hit by a weapon similar to an electromagnetic cannon. Yes, except for the satellite phone, all other communication devices were destroyed. We have lost command. A Navy general reported in a panic. 3 of our Air Force bases were destroyed. Hundreds of fighter jets and helicopters were destroyed. According to witnesses, it was a woman. Only one person. A major general of the Air Force was pale and couldn't even stand properly. How can this be? Is what the British said true? Is there really a God in Sidonie? President Sanchi no longer had any arrogance. His face was paler than a corpse that had been dead for 3 days. He trembled and was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Mr. President, this is a moment of life and death for the French Republic. I request authorization to use ground-penetrating missiles, intercontinental missiles, and other heavy weapons. And nuclear weapons. Defense Minister David's body was as straight as a sword as he slammed the table. Flames of anger shot out from his eyes like a ferocious tiger choosing its prey. But he is very close to Paris. A nuclear explosion is out of the question. President Sanchi was a little confused as he stammered. Mr. President, we have no better choice. David said with a solemn expression. This attack is no less than World War II. If we don't kill this dictator, we may become slaves of a subjugated country. At this moment, an information officer walked over quickly and said. The director of British MI6, John Sowers, and Ms. Hera from the Palace of Gods have come to visit. They hope that the French army will temporarily cease fire. They will cooperate with us to persuade Kang Tae-chu. Okay, let them go. We will cease fire. All conditions can be negotiated. President Sanchi said loudly. How can the French Republic bow down? In our history, there was a strong man like Napoleon and a brave man like Charles de Gaulle. Even in the face of Hitler, we were not afraid. But now. Defense Minister David sighed and shook his head in disappointment. He was very disappointed with President Sanchi's cowardice. The information officer had not left yet. He looked at President Sanchi and the defense minister as if he was waiting for something. Oh, right, it's Sidonie who is going to war with us. How can only the British come forward and not our representative? President Sanchi suddenly came to a realization. He suddenly turned to David and smiled. Minister David, you are a professional soldier who has been on the battlefield for a long time. You are also the person in charge of our national defense. Only you are qualified to be the negotiator. Ah. My stomach suddenly hurts. It seems that I ate too much seafood at the banquet. I need to go to the bathroom. Minister David was suddenly stunned. Then, he held his stomach, his face covered in cold sweat, and said in pain. Minister, your acting skills are too good. Could it be that your impassioned and fearless attitude was all an act? We're not asking you to go to the battlefield, but to negotiate. Many generals, staff officers, and high-ranking cabinet officials were speechless. That's not a problem. President Sanchi was very considerate. He waved his hand and said. I think your pained expression is just the right expression to express the suffering we are now talking about. Orderlies, bring Minister David adult diapers. The entire Paris theater suddenly stopped firing and shouted to Jiang Tian in Chinese, French, and English. Honorable Kang Tae-chu, how have you been? Just as Jiang Tian was confused, a holy light suddenly pierced through the void and flew out from the city of Paris. Hera, it's you. Does the Palace of Gods also want to get involved? Jiang Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he said coldly, you sent a message to Sidonie before that the other European countries will not participate in the war. The person who came was one of the 12 main gods of the Palace of Gods, Queen of Heaven Hera. She stood proudly in the void, filled with a holy light. Her jade face was radiant, and her temperament was otherworldly. Her medieval robe with golden edges made her look graceful and luxurious. No, I'm just here to pass on a message from the French government. France requests to stop the war. Hera stood in the void and bowed slightly, her face full of wariness. Hera, you're here to be a lobbyist for France? A hint of contempt appeared at the corner of Jiang Tian's mouth. Some people were only willing to come to the negotiating table after being beaten up. Honorable Kang Tae-chu, in fact, England and the Palace of Gods have always wanted to stop this war, but clearly, France has overestimated their strength, Hera sighed helplessly. In fact, the reason why the Palace of Gods had warned France before was because they did not want to expose the existence of godly state experts to the secular world, not because they thought France would lose. Hera also did not expect the current situation of the battle. Jiang Tian was simply crushing them like rotten wood. She was shocked and horrified to find that Jiang Tian's cultivation was constantly increasing and becoming stronger. If you want to negotiate, sure. Where are the French negotiators? Jiang Tian said lightly. Mr. David, the French Minister of Defense, and many cabinet members have already arrived at a military base outside Paris. The negotiations can be held there. Hera bowed slightly and said. Very well, lead the way. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Honorable sir, please follow me. Hera turned into a beam of holy light and flew toward a military base in the distance. Jiang Tian followed leisurely. It was more appropriate to call this military base a camp. It was a flintlock cavalry, armored division under the 3rd Mechanized Brigade, and it was also an elite division in the outer defense line of Paris. Why did you declare a ceasefire? How can we bow down to Sidonie's army? No, I heard that it wasn't the army that attacked us. A god appeared in Sidonie and destroyed all our defenses. Just as the soldiers in the camp were discussing spiritedly. Kaboom! In the night sky, a dazzling golden light that was hundreds of meters long shot down like a sharp golden knife that was about to split open the sky. Chapter 647. This golden light was like a long golden rainbow that soared through the sky. A terrifying aura was emitted, which encapsulated the entire camp like a mountain. He's here. Is he really a deity? Seeing this scene, the military powerhouses exclaimed. They couldn't even hold their guns properly, as if they had seen a ghost. Boom! The golden light blasted into the sky above the camp and paused slightly. Then, the golden light faded, and a young man with a dignified appearance suddenly appeared. His black hair fluttered like a waterfall, and he stood in the air with his hands behind his back. His white robe was spotless. Jiang Tian had pushed through 500 miles, broken through 8 defense lines in 2 war zones, and killed thousands of people, but his robe was not damaged at all. Where's the negotiator? Come out. Jiang Tian was like a deity who stood high above the heavens, looking down on all living beings. Everyone was afraid of him. Your Excellency Kang Tae-chu, I'm the negotiator for France. The French Defense Minister, David, accompanied by the director of the British MI6, John, had fearful eyes and trembling. He suppressed the fear in his heart and quickly greeted him. Jiang Tian floated down and swaggered over under Hera's accompaniment. Is this the deity Sidonie who defeated our army of tens of thousands? He's here. All the soldiers were frightened as they watched Jiang Tian walk over. They were as silent as cicadas in winter and didn't dare to breathe loudly. When Jiang Tian passed by, some soldiers even saluted subconsciously as if they were seeing their leader. Your Excellency Kang Tae-chu, France didn't mean to offend you. After coming to a hall, David bowed deeply and said with a sad face, this is all a misunderstanding. We want to stop the war. Misunderstanding? A delicate voice came. Ching'er, who had received Jiang Tian's message, met up with Jiang Tian and walked into the barracks. She glanced at everyone and said coldly, your country's garbage ship killed people in Sidonie. This is... David was shocked. David was terrified. Could it be the woman who destroyed so many Air Force bases? This must be Mr. Zhang's wife, Madame Zhao Xueqing. Hera laughed bitterly. To Kang Tae-chu, he probably couldn't be bothered to talk to this bunch of trash and ants, so he called his wife over. Oh, so it's Madame Zhao. Excuse me. Minister David bowed deeply to Zhao Xueqing, then said with a bitter smile, you are all honorable super experts. Why would you offend France over the death of a few Sidonie blacks? You've killed nearly 10,000 people and destroyed 7 to 8 lines of defense in 2 war zones, as well as the Marine Corps and the Atlantic Fleet. This has caused serious damage to France. It can be considered a disaster. Sidonie is a country under our control. It's our territory. Zhao Xueqing said firmly. Anyone who kills a person or even a dog will have to take responsibility and pay the price. Anyone, even a real god, as long as they kill a Sidonian, will chase them to the ends of the earth and take their lives. David looked at Zhao Xueqing and Jiang Tian's cold eyes and his heart trembled. This woman's strength was almost crazy. Being weak wasn't scary. However, being weak and cowardly was scary. It would often bring disaster to a country. And now, this small African country might really rise to power. Then what do you want? Minister David asked. Confess. Apologize. Compensate. Hand over the people. Zhao Xueqing's face darkened. France wants to pay compensation to Sidonie for the pollution of the Gulf of Tonkin. I want $2 trillion or equivalent in gold reserves. Over the years, the mercenaries of the New World have killed 32 civilians of Sidonie. I want the Rothschild family to pay with their lives. I want the culprits, Nathan, Raymond and the rest of Sidonie to face trial. I want them to pay with their lives. At least 32 of them must be hanged. Ms. Zhao, that's impossible. Our GDP in 2009 was only $2.9 trillion. Our gold and foreign reserves added up to only a little over $100 billion. An official from the finance department screamed. Ma'am, it's against international law to let Sidonie put the Rothschild family on trial. He's a French citizen. Only we can put him on trial. Someone said seriously. Maybe you don't understand the situation of this war. Zhao Xueqing smiled coldly and said, you are destined to be a defeated country. You have no right to bargain. You don't agree? Then let's continue the war. Mr. Jiang, does this represent your opinion? Among the French negotiators, a silver-haired old man with a graceful temperament stood up and straightened his back. With a simple movement, he suddenly exuded a powerful aura. We still have intercontinental missiles and depleted uranium bombs, nuclear bombs and aircraft carriers that we haven't used. We still have hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Hera and the director of MI6 looked at the old man in shock and awe. This man was the former Prime Minister of France and was now the President of the Senate. He was the real representative of the Hawk faction and the real power. He had a lot of influence in France. Even President Sanchi had to be courteous when he saw him. The president bent his middle finger and tapped on the table slowly. He said in a cold voice, you know Hua Xia's doctrine of speed. You caught France off guard and achieved a partial victory. But you should also know that France's military and national power is far stronger than Sidonie's. If it's a protracted war, we might not lose. Besides, France has the support of the European Union. How long can a small African country last? If you're confident, then let's fight. Zhao Xueqing smiled indifferently. If we fight, our hundreds of intercontinental missiles will raze Sidonie to the ground. The president showed the true demeanor of a hawk. His eyes were cold and his temperament was extremely intimidating. Do you really want to see hundreds of thousands of people in Sidonie die? I heard that your family and friends are there. Then we'll bury 60 million people in France. Zhao Xueqing said expressionlessly, I'm not afraid of you, and Sidonie's people will not hesitate to die. Today, I'm fighting for Sidonie. In the future, the 600,000 people of Sidonie will also fight for me. Anyone, any organization, any country that offends Sidonie's people will be attacked with the power of the country. Even if the price is a war across the country, even if all 600,000 people die in battle and rivers of blood flow, we will not hesitate. Very well, I now announce that the negotiations are over. Let's continue to fight. The president of the Senate was furious. He slammed the table and shouted angrily. Minister David was silent for a moment. In the end, he could only nod and say, we support Mr. President's opinion. Mr. President, I've already reminded you that the British military will not send reinforcements. Seeing this, John, the director of the British MI6, slammed the table and roared, France is facing a catastrophe. You will regret today's decision. The president turned to look at him coldly. The Republic of France will never surrender. His conditions are too harsh. $2 trillion, that's equivalent to 50 years of France's military expenditure. Instead of giving it to the enemy to buy weapons to deal with us, we might as well use them to deal with the enemy directly. Hera smiled miserably, her face full of sorrow. Sir Speaker, conventional weapons, even nuclear weapons, may be useless against him. My wife completely represents my opinion. But I have to add one more thing. At this moment, Jiang Tian stood up lazily. He hugged Zhao Xueqing's slender waist and said calmly, my wife is gentle and merciful. She doesn't want to kill. She has always tried to resolve all kinds of disputes peacefully. Now, let me answer the question of why we started this war. Actually, the Gulf of Tonkin incident is also an excuse. There's no reason to go to war. What did you say? The president was slightly stunned and confused. Jiang Tian walked toward the door of the hall and smiled arrogantly. I said, what does destroying you have to do with you? Hearing this, everyone felt a chill down their spines. Their eyes were filled with fear. Jiang Tian's domineering aura made it difficult for them to breathe. It was as if their hearts had stopped. The president was slightly stunned, as if he had been greatly humiliated. He slammed the table angrily and roared, you have no idea how many nuclear weapons we have, how many sophisticated weapons we have. We will teach you a lesson. We will attack Sidonie. We will force you to stop the war. Noisy. Jiang Tian didn't even turn his head. He just waved his hand casually. With a smack, the president was smashed into a pile of meat paste. The entire hall was dead silent. Everyone was trembling and dumbfounded. No one dared to say a word. Even the head of the British MI6, John, was trembling as if he had seen a ghost. One of the most powerful people in France, the former president, the president, was killed by Kang Tae-chu with one slap. Mr. Jiang, you are really... Hera shook her head speechlessly. She had never seen such a powerful and ruthless person in 200 years. Today, I will make all of France, all of Europe, and the whole world tremble before me. Ignoring everyone's shocked and terrified expressions, Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing left the barracks, stepped into the air, and turned into two streaks of light that immediately charged toward Paris. This time, Jiang Tian exerted his cultivation to the limit. Like a hot knife through butter, he instantly broke through the last few lines of defense. Minister David, we have to attack Sidonie. Kang Tae-chu has gone crazy. He's about to attack Paris. A senior staff officer roared. Defense Minister David pondered for a moment and finally gave the order. After receiving the order, dozens of intercontinental cruise missiles were launched from the French Northwest Theater of Operations and the Paris Theater of Operations, leaving a dazzling trail of flames behind them. They shot towards San Juan, the capital of Sidonie, at a super-high speed of Mach 3. The missiles streaked across the sky and flew over 1,000 kilometers to the Atlantic Ocean. In a dozen minutes, they would reach Sidonie's territory. Such intercontinental cruise missiles were equipped with a large number of high explosives and even nuclear warheads. They were called the King of Destruction. The missiles were 20 meters long and weighed a few tons. They could carry 10 nuclear warheads, and each nuclear warhead was equivalent to 20 tons of TNT. If they exploded in Sidonie's territory, they could turn the tiny country of Sidonie into a sea of fire. The entire country would be scorched and turned into a living hell. Chapter 648. His sharp spiritual power had already traversed thousands of meters and sensed the existence of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Let's go. At this moment, Zhang Qianlei's body trembled as he activated his soul energy. Swoosh! Swoosh! Disposable flying swords shot up into the sky like rockets, piercing through the air. Kaboom! Kaboom! A series of explosions suddenly sounded above Sidonie's North Bay. Giant black and red flowers seemed to have bloomed in the sky. The flames spread for more than a dozen kilometers. Oh no! Our intercontinental ballistic missiles didn't even enter Sidonie's territory. They exploded on the high seas. Almost at the same time. Hearing such a report, Defense Minister David and the many staff officers and commanders could not help but be shocked. Many generals shouted in disbelief, when did Sidonie have such advanced weapons? How is this possible? Minister, do we continue to attack? We don't have many intercontinental ballistic missiles left. A general asked bitterly. Defense Minister David's body trembled slightly. His face was solemn as he remained silent. Continue. Fire as many as you have. A general of the Eagle faction shouted angrily. Also, use weapons of mass destruction on Kang Tae-chu. Send out the bombers. I'm afraid not. He has already entered the downtown area of Paris. This will cause a lot of casualties. At this time, a general said with an ashen face. What? So fast? Minister David was dumbfounded as he slumped in his chair. It must be noted that the defense outside the city of Paris was the most elite and powerful. The Labrador Air Defense Zone, the 4th Air Mobile Brigade, the 6th Armored Brigade, and 3 mechanized brigades, there were thousands of people, missiles, cannons, fighter jets, tanks, helicopters. The president is still in the Élysée Palace. Minister David screamed as if he had just woken up from a dream. Send a tank battalion to protect the president and the cabinet members as they move to the Labrador Air Defense Zone. Under Jiang Tian's powerful attacks, the fighter jets burst into flames and exploded one after another. The steel torrent formed by tanks and armored vehicles was easily destroyed by his sword. The cannons couldn't even touch him. At this time, Jiang Tian had already entered the downtown area of Paris. Didn't you want a transport ship? Take it back. He stepped into the air and crossed a distance of several kilometers. When he arrived above the Louvre, he patted the sky-devouring demonic gourd at his waist. Rumble. A trash-laden transport ship that was dozens of meters long suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, under Jiang Tian's urging, it whizzed down toward the Louvre from several hundred meters above. The transport ship, which weighed hundreds of tons, instantly smashed the Marble Louvre Museum into pieces. The exquisite Roman columns were broken into several sections and shot out in all directions. The broken walls that were full of carvings shot out dozens of meters away. The transparent pyramid at the entrance turned into a pile of scrap metal. In less than a minute, this exquisite palace with a long history of 800 years turned into ruins. Flames soared into the sky and smoke billowed. Among them were countless treasures. Whether it was the statue of Venus, the Mona Lisa, or even the statue of the Goddess of Victory, a total of 400,000 priceless treasures were all destroyed. None of the crew members on the ship survived. All of them had broken bones and tendons, turning into a pile of flesh and blood. Rumble. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The citizens of Paris within a few kilometers felt a clear tremor as if there was a major earthquake. Did that devil attack Paris? Oh my God. This explosion is terrifying. They were as silent as cicadas in winter. Their faces were pale and they were panicking. The Louvre Museum is destroyed. The treasure of our French civilization. Some people even burst into tears as if they had lost their parents. Jiang Tian took a second step and came to the top of the Arc de Triomphe. He patted the sky-devouring magic gourd and another transport ship that was hundreds of meters long appeared in the sky. Let's hit a home run. After that, Jiang Tian waved his hand again, and the giant transport ship was like a bowling ball that was thrown out, rolling close to the ground. Rumble. The Arc de Triomphe, which was built with giant stones and exquisitely carved, was 50 meters high and 22 meters thick. It was grand and magnificent, like the backbone of the French nation, standing for hundreds of years without falling. The door inherited the history of Paris. The iron wall reliefs told of the vicissitudes of life and endless glory. But under the violent bombardment of the transport ship, the Arc de Triomphe crumbled in an instant as if it was made of tofu. The gorgeous reliefs shattered and turned into broken stones. They were then drowned by the rubbish and waste from the transport ship, never to appear in the world again. Oh my God! He destroyed the Arc de Triomphe. He's a devil. A devil. Sidonie is possessed. Seeing this scene, the citizens of Paris were filled with indignation and hatred. This was the national treasure, which carried too much meaning and symbolized a long history of war. The four themed murals represented war, victory, peace, and resistance. Now that it was destroyed, their hearts were bleeding. On the third step, Jiang Tian came to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Break! Jiang Tian waved his fingers and 100-meter-long Gengjin Chi soldier swept out. The 300-meter-tall Eiffel Tower, under Jiang Tian's blade, first made an ear-piercing sound of steel twisting and friction, then split into two and smashed to the left and right. Boom! The earth trembled, the towering French parasol tree was smashed to the ground, and the stone bridge under the Eiffel Tower was smashed into two. This was a shocking scene. Many Parisian citizens who witnessed it would remember it for the rest of their lives. Every time they thought about it, their hearts would bleed. The Eiffel Tower was a landmark of Paris. The Louvre represented the prosperous culture of France during the Renaissance, and the Eiffel Tower could be said to be the symbol of France during the Industrial Revolution. It was built using more than 1,500 giant prefabricated steel beams, 1.5 million rivets, and more than 10,000 steel castings, with a total weight of more than 7,000 tons. It constantly showed the strong industrial production capacity of France during the early stages of capitalism. It showed the strange imagination, the magnificent creativity, the whimsical romance, the extraordinary artistic taste, and the courage to innovate. Since the beginning of the new century, 5 million tourists from all over the world would visit this magnificent building every year. Since it was built, more than 250 million people had visited. But now, the Eiffel Tower that carried 100 years of glory, the crystallization of the sweat and blood of countless skilled craftsmen, had collapsed and become a pile of scrap metal. This was like a joke. Oh God, the Eiffel Tower is destroyed too. This is the eternal symbol of Paris. Oh God. This demon should go to hell. Damn it. Countless witnesses were trembling, screaming, crying, and cursing with hatred. Is Paris still Paris without the Eiffel Tower? A poet laughed hysterically and committed suicide by swallowing cyanide not far from the Eiffel Tower. He is flying. Those huge ships, where did he put them before? These huge transport ships weigh dozens of tons, how did he control them? Is he really a demon, or a god? Sidonie is possessed. This is the most terrifying demon in history, more terrifying than vampires and werewolves. But more people were afraid of the unknown. Many people were so scared that they knelt on the ground, trembling, and begging Jiang Tian not to kill them. Even the soldiers guarding this area were trembling and could not hold their guns steadily. The bullets fired by a few soldiers could not hurt Jiang Tian at all. The Arc de Triomphe and the Eiffel Tower, the iconic buildings of Paris and the entire France, were destroyed. Jiang Tian took the fourth step. The Palace of Versailles, the royal castle and gardens that had been used as the palace from Louis XIV to the French Revolution, was destroyed by the garbage ship. The fire soared into the sky and turned into ruins. Although the firefighters arrived in time, only ruins were left. The fifth step. Notre Dame de Paris. Even the representative of the Gothic architecture, which was made famous by the famous French romantic writer, Hugo, was not spared from the disaster. The church was destroyed by the huge garbage ship and was razed to the ground in a few minutes. Jiang Tian took 8 steps in the sky and attacked 8 times. Each attack was ruthless and had the power to destroy the world. The transport ships and various magic weapons and talismans were thrown, and an iconic building was destroyed. In the blink of an eye, Paris was in a sea of fire. These were all places of interest in France. There were so many places on fire that the adequate firefighting force in the city of Paris was not enough. The Seine River was about to be drained. It's time to go to the Élysée Palace. After blowing up a few tanks that were firing, Jiang Tian took the 9th step and flew toward the Élysée Palace that represented the highest authority in France. At the same time, the Élysée Palace. Several French-made AMX-30 main battle tanks, led by the guards, rumbled loudly. The tracks pressed against the luxurious and classical marble steps in front of the Élysée Palace. The corners of the steps cracked slightly. The tank's overly wide body rubbed against the Roman pillars at the entrance of the palace, making ear-piercing creaking sounds and leaving mottled scars. The tank squeezed through, causing a few shocking cracks to appear on the Roman pillars. Finally, they arrived at the main entrance of the Élysée Palace. The tank door opened to welcome President Sanchi and the senior cabinet officials. Damn it! Damn it, David! Why do we have to start another war? Paris is done for, France is done for, we are going to be sinners in history. At this time, President Sanchi was as panicked as an ant on a hot pan. Under the escort of the presidential guards, he hurried toward the tank outside the door. He was as scared as a rabbit facing a tiger. He trembled, his face was pale, and his head was covered in cold sweat. He even lost one of his leather shoes. He no longer had his usual elegant demeanor. He was covered in dust and was in a sorry state. Just as Sanchi took one step into the tank. Whoosh! An endless golden light cut through the night sky like a comet. He's here. President Sanchi was stunned. Many cabinet members and media reporters raised their heads and looked at the golden light in the sky as if they had seen a ghost. Chapter 649. The golden light paused for a moment. A domineering figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the Élysée Palace, standing in the air. Sanchi, where do you think you're going? I'm here to return the garbage ship to you. A voice that resounded through heaven and earth, containing a monstrous pressure, came crashing down like Mount Tai. Many people trembled, their faces turned pale, and they trembled crazily. Some officers even knelt on the ground in shock. There really is a God. He can fly without any external help. I'm so lucky. I can actually shoot a high-definition video. I'm afraid I'll win the Pulitzer Prize next year. But there were a few reporters stationed here who were ecstatic, holding their cameras and capturing this earth-shattering scene. Your Excellency Kang Tae-chu. I want to stop the war, but the speaker won't listen to my orders. President Sanchi was so scared that his legs went weak and he couldn't even stand properly. He begged with a sobbing tone, I'm innocent, please, please don't kill me. When an avalanche happens, no snowflake is innocent. Jiang Tian sneered. France is just a small place, but you're arrogant and condescending. You've been polluting our territorial waters for several years and hired mercenaries to kill our civilians. I've given you a chance to correct your mistakes, but you and the cabinet didn't cherish it. You even threatened to invade my territory and occupy Sidoni. Jiang Tian's demonic dragon roar contained terrifying spiritual energy. Every word was sonorous, like a thunderclap. People's ears were ringing, and they were dizzy and trembling. Their legs were as weak as noodles, and they couldn't support themselves. But how can I be provoked by ants like you? In the end, Jiang Tian glared, raised his eyebrows, and shouted. You are unforgivable. Kneel. At this moment, the power of the demonic dragon roar erupted to the extreme. The ground within a radius of 7 to 8 miles trembled violently, as if the space was about to collapse. The surrounding buildings, countless glass windows, countless trees, under Jiang Tian's shout, they were all shattered into pieces, fluttering in the air like butterflies. An unprecedentedly terrifying pressure came crashing down like Mount Tai, suppressing the Élysée Palace. Under this terrifying pressure, Yi Zichen was stunned. Whether it was the battle-hardened elite soldiers, the ruthless and tenacious officials and politicians, or even President Shang-Chi himself, there were more than 1,000 of them. None of them could bear it. They all knelt on the ground, some even fainted. As for the BBC reporter, before he fainted, he used his camera to record the scene that would forever be recorded in history. A young Chinese man stood in the air, looking down at the Élysée Palace as if he were a god standing on the heavens. At his feet, the French president knelt, the cabinet ministers bowed their heads, and all the soldiers with modern weapons prostrated themselves on the ground. It seemed to symbolize that the Élysée Palace and all of France were under his feet. At this moment, Jiang Tian's suppression of France had far-reaching effects. Although the truth was temporarily concealed by the secular regime, it was still revealed to the world many years later. As a result, hundreds of years later, it was still remembered and often mentioned by people. That moment marked the beginning of the 2,000 years of civilization and order of mankind being overturned. France, one of the 5 great countries in the world, has bowed down to a human. This marks the first time that cultivators have surfaced and openly challenged the authority of a great country. But this is also a sign of the recovery of spirit energy. Many years later, powerhouses have risen, and the great era of cultivation has arrived. Mankind has gradually stepped into an era where technology and cultivation coexist. Many years later, the world's leading expert in the history of cultivation, Peter Chen, wrote in the foreword of An Overview of Global Cultivation Civilization. He was not stingy with his praise. At this moment, President Shang-Chi was almost kneeling on the ground. Humiliation, anger, unwillingness, and fear, many emotions flashed across his face one after another, but in the end, they all turned into endless sighs. He lowered his head and said in a trembling voice, Your Excellency Kang Te-Chu, we have lost this war. We request a truce and will agree to all your conditions. Good. Remember your words. However, I still have to return the trash to you. Jiang Tian sneered and patted the red-skinned small gourd on his waist. A garbage ship broke through the air and crashed down, smashing the Élysée Palace into ruins. Then, Jiang Tian could not be bothered to look at the crowd. With his hands behind his back, he walked away lazily. At this moment, Hera was filled with holy light. She rose into the air and flew to Jiang Tian's side. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. Your Excellency Kang Te-Chu, don't you think you have destroyed too many civilizations' legacies this time? She sighed with regret and regret. The Louvre, the Palace of Versailles, Notre Dame de Paris, and every sculpture and oil painting in them. They are all treasures of civilization, treasures that cannot be duplicated. Jiang Tian landed and walked. He had regained his ordinary appearance. He was like a gentle boy next door, no longer domineering and murderous. Hearing this, he said calmly. Hera, you think I was too heavy-handed, right? But I think the greatest respect for the enemy is to spare no effort to destroy them. This is a war. Hera, you have to remember that in war, you lose your humanity and lose part of yourself. If you lose your bestial nature, you might lose everything. If I hadn't been ruthless and intimidated those rascals, the one to be destroyed might have been Sidoni. You should know that France has the strength to do so. Mr. Jiang, what you said makes sense. I have learned my lesson. Hera bowed slightly and said humbly. In your opinion, the oil paintings, sculptures, and architecture that shone brightly during the Renaissance in France are civilizations. A hint of vicissitudes flashed in Jiang Tian's eyes as he said leisurely. But in my opinion, Sidoni's primitive dance, rustic stone tools, and pottery, as well as their unique winemaking techniques are civilizations as important as the Louvre. Their fruit wine is really delicious. I'll give you some later. Why should France be able to destroy Sidoni? Relying on military power. Then I'm sorry. With me around, Sidoni will become a powerhouse. Sometimes, I really suspect that you're like the legends, an alien from across the sea of stars, or an old monster reborn. Hera's gentle and elegant face was filled with shock. After a slight pause, a strange light flashed in her clear eyes. She didn't expect Jiang Tian's thoughts to be so profound. He was much more charming than the dead Zeus. Hera, I give time to civilization, but I don't give time to civilization. Jiang Tian did not comment. He just smiled and said lightly, that's right. I'm creating a brand new civilization system for Sidoni, a civilization with more vitality and stronger immunity, containing endless possibilities and imagination. And some arrogant civilizations are digging their own graves. Then don't give them any more time. At this moment, the surrounding smoke billowed. Jiang Tian, who was leisurely strolling through the ruins, gave off a strange sense of quiet beauty. He was like a wise man who could see through the past, present, and future. He was like a true god who stood at the pinnacle of a universal civilization. This feeling lingered. Hera was shocked. She said, Mr. Jiang, are you really trying to overturn the existing civilization order? I won't stay in this world for too long, but I'll leave behind some seeds of cultivation civilization. Jiang Tian shook his head and smiled. You're talking too far. It's actually very simple. France wants to destroy my progress. Unfortunately, I can only destroy them. You won't stay for too long. You mean? Hera thought of a possibility, and her heart was in turmoil. However, Hera, the reason why the Rothschild family can stand for hundreds of years without falling is probably because they have some mysterious power behind them, right? Jiang Tian didn't answer this question. Instead, he looked at Hera and said with a faint smile. Hera's long eyelashes fluttered. She lowered her eyelids and tucked a strand of her golden hair behind her ear. She revealed a moment of gentleness that could move one's soul. She laughed bitterly. It seems that I can't hide anything from the wise Kang Te-chu. Well, I'll tell you. The Rothschild family supports an Earl-level blood breed, which is a vampire. An Earl-level blood breed? You dare to challenge me with just a vampire bat? Jiang Tian's eyes were full of disdain. In his opinion, only first-generation vampires like the Blood Ancestor were qualified to fight with him. As for the Earl level, it was probably only at the peak of the immortal state. However, he could destroy it with one strike. This vampire named Black Earl Barter was very famous in the Middle Ages, during the French Revolution, and during the Napoleonic Wars. He knew black magic and spread the plague and the Black Death. Wherever he went, there would be corpses everywhere. He even massacred several cities in small countries like Norway. In the Middle Ages, Bartle controlled almost half of the French noble class. Many nobles and even members of the royal family were his followers. They believed that worshipping him would make them immortal, and that they would obtain mysterious power if they received the magic blood he gave them. But under the siege of the Holy See, the Palace of Gods, and the United States, the vampires gradually declined and struggled at death's door. In the end, the gathering of darkness represented the werewolves, the blood breed, and the witches. They reached an agreement with the Holy See and the secular government. The blood breed and other forces hid themselves and would no longer disturb the secular order. However, the secular government also had to stop hunting them down and give them a way out. Gathering of darkness? Jiang Tian frowned. He had heard of this name before, but he didn't know the details. In the Middle Ages, the werewolves, the blood breed, the witches, the black magicians, and the alchemists also had a long war with each other. Hera explained with a smile. But later, due to the suppression of the Holy See, they shook hands and made peace. Several first-generation vampires, the wolf ancestor, the witch god, and other powerful figures formed the Gathering of Darkness to resist the siege of the Holy See and the secular army. The Gathering of Darkness had many existences beyond the immortal state. For a long time, their strength was enough to contend with the Holy See. Does the Gathering of Darkness still exist? Jiang Tian's eyes burned as he looked at Hera. Chapter 650. Hera looked down and evaded his gaze. Then, she raised her eyebrows and laughed mockingly. I think this organization has already perished. Even with the huge intelligence network of the Palace of Gods and MI6, they still can't find any information. Although Dark Duke Barter is powerful, he can't go against the tide of history and can only hide. He chose to protect the Rothschild family, and the Luo family provided them with funds and materials, as well as blood slaves. Oh, no wonder the Rothschild family didn't implement a shareholding system and didn't bring in strategic investors. Jiang Tian had a hint of understanding in his heart as he mumbled to himself. He muttered to himself, because it's impossible to explain the large expenditure and expenses to the vampires to most shareholders. And the Rothschild family is so conservative and has no ambition. It's already against common sense for them to be able to stand for 200 years without collapsing. It can only be explained by a powerful force backing them. In Huaxia, the strongest force in the secular world was undoubtedly the Huaxiaolong formation. But Huaxia still had the existence of semi-hidden sects and hidden sections. It was said that there were many old monsters above the deity state. Then, the West should also have a hidden force outside of the Palace of Gods. Otherwise, the East and West would have long been out of balance. Your Excellency Kang Te-Chu, I think you should get rid of the Rothschild family and the Dark Duke Barter behind them. Hera suggested earnestly. Holy light spread out, and she presented a map with a mark with both hands. Rose Castle, more than 10 kilometers north of Paris. It's Barter's residence. Hera, you're not helping me. Jiang Tian didn't take the map. Instead, he put his hands behind his back and said meaningfully. Your Excellency, what do you mean? Hera was shocked. Jiang Tian said with a faint smile, you want me to help you get rid of the blood breed, or make me too tired to deal with the blood breed and have no time to deal with the Palace of Gods and the Holy See, right? She didn't expect Jiang Tian to have already seen through everything. In that instant, Queen of Heaven Hera was so shocked that her face was as white as paper. Her entire body was drenched in sweat, and her delicate body was trembling slightly. She slowly retracted the map and put on her guard. Forcing a smile, she said, Your Excellency Kang Te-Chu, you've misunderstood me. If you think that my kind suggestion is a conspiracy, then I take back my words. No matter what you think, I will get rid of them. Jiang Tian took the map, then slapped her perky buttocks fiercely and laughed loudly. Be it the Covenant of Darkness, the Hall of Gods, or even the Holy See, none of them are worthy of being my opponent. Sir Kang Te-Chu, Hera has always respected you. How could you take advantage of me like this? Hera's charming face was flushed red, and her beautiful eyes were filled with mist. She seemed to be both angry and happy as she tenderly shouted. You should have a lifespan of 200 years, right? I didn't expect you to maintain it so well. You must be very lonely now that Zeus is dead. Jiang Tian let out a naughty laugh and soared into the sky, transforming into a golden stream of light that shot off into the distance like a bolt of lightning. Sigh, my Queen of Heaven is just a title. It has nothing to do with Zeus. Hera sighed faintly, suppressing the intoxicating feeling that rose in her entire body. Stepping on a holy light, she chased after Jiang Tian. When Jiang Tian had just entered Paris. In the northern suburbs of Paris, the Rose Castle was shrouded in black clouds. It looked very old and gave off a terrifying and sinister feeling. The rusty iron gates were tightly shut, and unknown vines crawled all over them. In the courtyard, the roses were withered, and unknown shrubs and weeds were waist-high. Stray cats were running around like arrows, and densely packed bats were flying everywhere. A black cat was squatting on the windowsill with a sparrow in its mouth, chewing noisily. Its golden pupils had shrunk to the size of needles, giving off a bloodthirsty smell. Around the courtyard, the bare branches of the French parasol tree pierced into the sky like ghost claws. On the branches, crows were squatting densely, their demonic eyes vigilantly looking at the night sky. Whoosh! A few civilian helicopters broke the silence, piercing through the rolling black clouds and circling over like stray dogs. The helicopters landed on the empty space in the courtyard. The cabin door opened, and under the protection of many bodyguards, a group of Rothschild family members in luxurious clothes hurried out. "Dad, it's so scary here. Why are there so many crows? I'm shivering all over." The one complaining was Nathan's favorite youngest daughter, Annaline. She had a delicate oval face, and her exquisite makeup was flawless. She wore an evening gown that accentuated her tall and perfect figure. Her long blonde hair was draped over her shoulders, and she wore an exquisite diamond-studded crown on her head. On her jade-like neck, she wore a Heart of the Ocean blue diamond necklace, which was worth at least 100 million euros. On her feet was a pair of red suede heels custom-made for her by the chief designer of Gucci. She was like a bright moon, a natural beauty, like a high and mighty princess. Annaline was very beautiful, but she was definitely not a useless vase. Her family's Annaline Cosmetics and Jones jewelry, which were worth hundreds of millions of euros, were all created by her. These two brands were very influential in the world, and they were now on par with many well-known luxury brands in Europe. At this moment, being chased away like a stray dog, she said indignantly, "That Kang Tae-chu can't do anything to us. He has to abide by international law. Dad, we should go abroad at this time. What's the use of coming here?" Raymond beat his chest and stamped his feet anxiously. He had never thought that Kang Tae-chu would actually conquer Paris and make the entire France surrender. Until now, he still felt that it was unreal. Everything was like a nightmare, an absurd nightmare. One person challenging the army of a country, one of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, France, was like a legend. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would have kicked anyone who told him this and scolded, "Bullshit. Shut up. If it wasn't for you causing trouble in Sidonie, we wouldn't have become stray dogs now." Nathan had an evil appearance, and his cold gaze could kill. He raised his hand and slapped Raymond hard on the face. Slap. Raymond's nose was bleeding from the slap. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. Nathan was furious. He did not expect Raymond to provoke Kang Tae-chu to be so powerful. If it wasn't for his trump card, it was very likely that today would be the day of the Rothschild family's destruction. 300 years of foundation, destroyed in a day. Raymond was dizzy from the slap. His head was buzzing, and he was stunned. He covered his face and did not dare to speak. In fact, the members of the Rothschild family did not understand why Nathan brought everyone to this place. But no one dared to question Nathan's authority. They could only look at each other, shake their heads, and sigh. Only James seemed to have thought of something. His eyes were excited. Father could not be summoning that, right? Nathan ignored Raymond and the others. He walked quickly to a round marble altar in the courtyard facing the door and knelt down respectfully at the door of the castle. This castle had not been cleaned for many years. It was dirty. The round altar was full of rotten leaves and bird droppings. But Nathan did not hesitate to kneel down and kowtow. His forehead touched the bird droppings. Seeing this scene, Anna was shocked and confused. Her clear eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Her father was someone who could be on the same level as President Sanchi. What kind of important person could make him kneel down so respectfully? At this moment, Mr. Nathan took out a knife and cut his palm. He raised his bleeding hands and kowtowed continuously. Then, ignoring the intense pain, he pressed his hands on the grooves on the altar and said loudly with a pious expression, "I'm sorry." With a face full of reverence, he shouted, "Respected blood god Barter, your loyal servant, little Nathan of the Rothschild family, begs for your help." Blood god Barter. Our family is actually the servant of blood god Barter. Anna was shocked and couldn't believe it. She had heard too many legends about Barter since she was a child. In these legends, Barter was the god who guarded France. Legends said that he was the son of the French Marshal Guilles in the 100 Years' War and had fought side by side with Joan of Arc. Later, he and his father studied alchemy together and discovered the power of blood. After killing more than 3,000 British prisoners, he finally summoned the descendant of the first vampire, Cain. He condensed the immortal body of the blood breed and made a great contribution to repelling the British army. The blood in Nathan's palm kept flowing and poured into the hexagram and various beautiful patterns on the marble altar. The blood seemed to be alive as it flowed and trembled in the grooves of the hexagram. It changed in an instant and emitted an incomparably magnificent red light that enveloped him. At this moment, everyone could clearly feel that a mysterious and strange power had awakened or been activated. Just as everyone was bewildered, a dazzling blood-red light shot over from afar. That blood light was dozens of meters long and was extremely sharp. It was like a blood blade that cut through the sky and illuminated half of the sky red. The blood light was as sharp as a blade, and its wide tail was as vast as the sea. It was as if it was going to sweep through the 9 heavens. Wherever it passed, tall buildings crumbled, and corpses were wrapped in the bloody light one after another. The blood light was surging, and the murderous aura was monstrous. There were hundreds of corpses, and even the wreckage of tanks and armored vehicles were floating in the blood light. This is Lord Blood God is here. Nathan was ecstatic as if he had seen a believer who had seen a god. He was so excited that his whole body trembled, and tears flowed down his face as he kowtowed repeatedly. In the past, there was a rumor that a count-level blood breed could repel an army of tens of thousands in a battle. I didn't believe it before, but now, I believe it. Behind Nathan, a mercenary powerhouse in a military uniform looked at the sky with emotion and bitterness in his mouth. Chapter 651. The king of mercenaries was terrified and his body couldn't help but tremble. There were such powerful people lurking in the dark. If they all came out, the world would be in chaos. This, not to mention him, all the members of the Rothschild family were pale and horrified. They couldn't help but want to turn around and run. This destructive power seemed to be stronger than the legendary Kang Tae-chu. One person could destroy a city. Annalyn felt that her legs were soft and her body was wet as if she was about to pee. The torrential blood-red light arrived above the ancient castle. Then, it suddenly converged and disappeared into thin air. "My people, come in." At the same time, the gate of the castle opened and a beautiful and sweet voice came from the castle hall. Annalyn was trembling and confused as she followed her father and others into the hall. On the high platform near the wall in the hall, on the golden chair inlaid with rubies, a young man in a medieval noble suit and a black high-collared cloak put down the Discover magazine in his hand, revealing a pale face. Barter had a face that didn't belong to a human. His facial features were clear and three-dimensional. His skin was crystal clear and the blue blood vessels could be seen. He was like an elf. That wasn't handsome or dashing. It could only be called beautiful. It was a kind of feminine beauty that could take one's soul away. Annalyn had been in the fashion industry for many years. Her friends were famous models, stars, celebrities, and so on. Among them, there was no lack of royal family members. She was very knowledgeable and picky. "He's so handsome." But at this time, she almost didn't dare to look directly at Barter. Stars and fresh meat were nothing in front of Barter. If he was a star, Annalyn would definitely become his die-hard fan. She would watch every one of his movies, every concert, buy every one of his records, and dedicate all her savings to him. Barter was too charming. His divinity overflowed and seemed to be filled with a sacred bloody light. His every move and casual look made her heart beat faster. She was so excited that she almost went into shock. In fact, it wasn't just her. All the women of the Rothschild family had this feeling of heart beating faster and suffocating. They couldn't help but want to get close to him and worship him. Even Nathan's wife, who had been menopausal for many years, felt that she was wet. As for Raymond, James, and other men who thought highly of themselves, there was no doubt that they were so ashamed that they wanted to find a hole to hide in and disappear in front of Barter. "Little Nathan, don't worry." Barter stood up, flung his black cloak, and smiled disdainfully. "I will help you kill Kang Tae-chu. No matter how strong he is trash compared to the Duke level of the blood breed." His simple action exuded an astonishing charm, causing many women to cheer. "France's blood god. You are the most powerful existence in France. We believe you. Worship you. Love you." Barter nodded slightly and said in an elegant and calm manner, "I know, he once killed Zeus, but I killed the previous generation of Zeus 100 years ago. Gods, SSTSs. Europe is under my control. But he was able to kill the current Zeus, which means he is quite powerful. For safety's sake, I'd better summon a Duke-level blood breed and a few marquises to deal with him. Thank you, blood god Barter. From now on, the Rothschild family will serve you more loyally. We are willing to give you everything we have." Nathan knelt on the ground and climbed up like a loyal dog. He humbly kissed Barter's toes and shed tears of gratitude. "I didn't expect the Rothschild family to worship the real French blood god. He killed the previous Zeus. He is so powerful. Kang Tae-chu is no match for him." Many members of the Rothschild family were also in high spirits as if they had been injected with chicken blood. "Humph, if Kang Tae-chu dares to come, he will die." Annalyn raised her chin and snorted. Even if Barter wasn't the Roll family's backer, she would still support Barter. After all, Barter was too handsome. Just as everyone was in high spirits and discussing animatedly, Paris. That crazy woman. Raymond's phone rang. It was an overseas call from Paris. Raymond reported to his father and Nathan allowed him to answer the call. But this time, Paris was looking for Mr. Nathan. "Mr. Nathan, it doesn't feel good to be kicked out like a dog, does it?" Nathan took the phone from his son and heard Paris's sarcastic tone. "Paris, don't be so smug. You don't know what I'm capable of." After summoning the Dark Duke Martel, Nathan's confidence was boosted. "Paris, don't be disrespectful to Mr. Nathan." At this time, Marshall took the phone and said to Nathan in an amiable tone, "Mr. Nathan, in terms of business and politics, we've worked together many times. I also cherish the friendship we once had. Just admit defeat and compensate Sidoni with your family assets. I will persuade Mr. Jiang to spare your life and some assets. You are old after all. Isn't it good to drink tea, grow flowers and enjoy your old age?" Marshall was being kind. After all, the California Financial Group and the Rothschild family had worked together before. He thought that if Nathan lowered his head and admitted his mistake, his attitude would be better and let Jiang Tian cool down. He believed that Jiang Tian would also give him some face. He did it out of the goodness of his heart. But to Nathan, it was very unpleasant. He couldn't stand it. He sneered and said, "Marshall, there's no need for that. The friendship between you and me has already been destroyed by you. From now on, our relationship is severed." If the French blood god Barter didn't agree to help, he wouldn't have dared to be so stubborn. Jiang Tian had even beaten the French army into a sorry state. How could a secular family withstand him? But now, he wasn't afraid. As long as Barter made a move, Kang Tae-chu wouldn't be his match. In the future, the Rothschild family might become the most powerful family in the world. "Nathan, where does your confidence come from? Why do you have to be so stubborn?" Mr. Marshall sighed deeply. "Where does my confidence come from? Humph, I don't need to explain my actions to you." Nathan's eyes suddenly turned cold. He said arrogantly, "You should worry about Kang Tae-chu and yourself. Don't worry, after Kang Tae-chu's death, I won't let any of you California Financial Group off the hook. Well, I hope you won't regret it. Marshall shook his head helplessly on the other side of the phone. You are the one who will regret it. Mr. Nathan sneered and hung up the phone. He was about to turn the tables. How could he regret it? The Rothschild family had a Duke-level vampire as their backer. How could they lose? What kind of concept was a Duke-level vampire? He was more powerful than an immortal state warrior and could rival a mortal fairy and a saint. One had to know that Barter had once killed Zeus of the previous generation and repelled the entire pantheon. Lord Blood God, humph, this cunning Marshal must know that you are my backer. That's why he called me. Seeing Barter's inquisitive look, Nathan sneered and shook his head disdainfully. Even if he begs for mercy, even if Kang Tae-chu comes to beg for mercy, it will be too late. Let them die in regret. Ha, you think I will beg for mercy? Who gave you such confidence? At this moment, a voice full of mockery suddenly sounded in the hall. Everyone was shocked to find a tall and imposing figure at the door. He had black hair, black eyes, and a handsome face. He is Kang Tae-chu. Raymond was so shocked that he subconsciously took a few steps back. Nathan stepped forward and said arrogantly, Kang Tae-chu, you still dare to come? As a powerful person, shouldn't this be the castle of Dark Duke Barter? Are you here to die? It's just a few stinky blood-sucking bats. It's not like I haven't killed them before. What's so strange about it? Jiang Tian put his hands behind his back and looked at Barter calmly. He said indifferently, Barter, I am going to destroy the Rothschild family. Now you have two choices. Get out of here or die. Jiang Taichu, you arrogant fool who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Don't you know that your death is imminent? Annalyn pointed at Jiang Tian and mocked him. She was gloating over his misfortune. This Hua Xia guy looked ordinary and not as handsome as Barter. How dare he make an enemy of the Rothschild family? Ha, you are Kang Tae-chu. Barter's voice came slowly. It was a bit ethereal as if his voice was coming from all directions. Do you know what sin you have committed? Barter was like a god above the 9 heavens, judging Jiang Tian with the attitude of looking down on an ant. Sin. I am not interested in discussing this with you. Jiang Tian felt it was very funny. He shook his head and said, I have already said it. You can either die or get out of here. The vampire family's dogma is that if you provoke the vampires must kill you. This is your sin. Barter's voice was pleasant to listen to. It was as smooth as silk, but it carried a monstrous arrogance. Although you, Kang Tae-chu, are strong, in the eyes of the vampires, you are no different from an ant. Now, I sentence you to death. You are so arrogant. You dare to judge me? You talk too much nonsense. You are like a sissy. If you want to fight, then don't talk nonsense. Make your move as soon as possible. Jiang Tian's mouth raised into a mocking arc. He said with disdain. You are courting death. Barter roared angrily. His face suddenly became cold and twisted. 2 white sharp fangs quickly emerged. His body was filled with a torrential blood aura. He was about to attack Jiang Tian. Chapter 652. Just as Jiang Tian flew into the castle, a kilometer away from the Rose Castle. Iron Screen Assassin Group, why are you here? A black magician in a red cloak stood on top of a tree and asked curiously when he saw a few black shadows flashing over. We're here to watch a good show, a once-in-a-lifetime battle. The leader of Iron Screen arrived in a blink of an eye and found a good spot to occupy. He laughed and said, Kang Tae-chu will definitely come here. Who doesn't know that the French blood god Martel is behind the Roll family? Iron Screen's assassin group was ranked in the top 10 in the world, and France was also one of the best. But at this moment, he was as excited as a 3-year-old kid who had just received his lucky money. He glanced around and found that they had come to the right place. Hee hee, I didn't come in vain. There are so many people. At this moment, around the Rose Castle, almost half of Europe was surrounded by dozens of strong people from the Dark World. Some of them were hiding in abandoned villas, some were hiding in the bushes, and some were hiding in the canopy. They were using binoculars to observe and whispering to each other. Iron Screen, your information is pretty good. That's right, Kang Tae-chu has indeed entered. The Black Magician laughed. Who do you think will win? Everyone chatted for a while. Suddenly, a strong person asked. That's hard to say. Kang Tae-chu is very strong, but when Barter appeared just now, he was very strong. A strong person exclaimed with an uneasy expression. This person was a European combat master who had once killed many polar bears with his bare hands in Norway. I think Kang Tae-chu has a higher chance of winning. He killed Zeus. A trace of fear flashed across the Black Magician's face as he shook his head helplessly. Not necessarily. The leader of Iron Screen's eyes flashed with a trace of depth as he shook his head lightly. Why do you think so? A strong person asked. Because Martel also killed the older generation of Zeus. His strength is not weaker than Kang Tae-chu, right? An alchemist in metal armor crossed his arms and laughed proudly. No. Because Dracula will definitely come. The leader of Iron Screen said indifferently. What? He's here too. I'm afraid Kang Tae-chu is really in danger. An expert exclaimed. Iron Screen's leader still wanted to say something. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked into the distance. His expression changed slightly and he said in shock, Did you see that, Xue Guang? It should be him. Did Dracula really come? Everyone's expression changed drastically, and they all turned their heads. Several resplendent beams of blood-red light shot over from the distance at an extremely fast speed, covering hundreds of meters in an instant. A few streaks of blood-red light also noticed them and paused in midair. However, he didn't say anything. Instead, he sped up and flew directly toward Rose Castle. Martel, don't worry. Martel was about to attack Jiang Tian. Suddenly, several figures appeared in the hall. The leader was a middle-aged man. He was wearing a black woolen top hat with half a lens on the bridge of his nose. He was wearing a tuxedo, a white shirt, and a black high-collared cloak with a red lining. He was leaning on a black cane. His beard was neatly combed, and his curly golden hair was naturally draped over his shoulders. He gave off an unruly, yuppie vibe. However, looking at the surging blood-red aura around him, it was incomparably viscous and almost tangible. His strength was undoubtedly stronger than Barter's. Behind him, there were 3 sexy and enchanting women with voluptuous figures. They were dressed in chiffon and looked very coquettish. These 3 female vampires swayed their hips as they walked. Their breasts rippled, and their eyes were as seductive as silk. Raymond, James, and the others felt their eyes and hearts beat rapidly. Honorable Duke Dracula, you've had a long journey. Seeing their arrival, Barter's arrogant attitude was replaced by ecstasy. He stood up to greet them respectfully. With one hand behind his back, he held Barter's hand with the other and kissed it. He bowed politely to this middle-aged man who looked like an old gentleman. Yes, I received your message and immediately rushed over from Romania. Dracula smiled. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in shock and awe. It had only been 20 minutes since they came to the castle to summon Barter. If Barter called him over again, it would definitely be less than 10 minutes. But in less than 10 minutes, Dracula had crossed 3 small countries and arrived in Paris. This speed was even faster than a supersonic fighter jet. Was this still a human? This was a real god. Barter, don't worry. Can I talk to him first? Duke Dracula turned his head leisurely and smiled at Jiang Tian. Of course, as you wish. Barter said respectfully. Honorable Sir Kang Tae-chu, I am Duke Dracula of Romania. Dracula bowed politely like an old gentleman. He then straightened his back and said, My name is Dracula. In fact, I have heard of you long ago, and I admire you very much. You can even surpass Yi Tianren back then. I think that we belong to the same camp. If you are willing, why don't you join the blood breeds and let them manage Sidoni? How about we overthrow the current order together? Why should I give it to you? Who do you think you are? Jiang Tian said disdainfully. If you don't agree, then I will seek justice on behalf of the Rothschild family. Dracula's face suddenly turned cold. He then elegantly shrugged and said, maybe I don't have the confidence to take your life, but your family, you are courting death. Jiang Tian's eyes suddenly turned cold. I think you are the one courting death. Dracula's eyes suddenly turned cold as he roared with a hideous smile. He sneered and said, 2 dukes of the blood breeds, 3 marquises. Even if Yi Tianren was here, he wouldn't dare to provoke us. Okay, Dracula, you have touched my bottom line. Jiang Tian flung his sleeves. His eyes were extremely cold and murderous. Don't say that you are just a dirty and ugly vampire, a dead bat that can't see the light of day. Even if the chairman of the Covenant of Darkness, the powerhouses of the Holy See, or the gods and Buddhas are here, I will still kill you. Since his rebirth, Jiang Tian cared about his family the most. He could give up money, wealth, power, and status, but he would never allow anyone to hurt his family. But Dracula, this old guy, dared to threaten him with his family. That was touching his bottom line. Then he would kill him without mercy. Then he must die. Presumptuous, how dare you speak to the blood gods like this? Raymond arrogantly took a step forward and roared. He seemed to be a little bolder now. Originally, he thought that Kang Te-Chu must be like the gods in Hua Xia mythology with 3 heads and 6 arms, and was as tall as a mountain. But now, it seemed that he was just an ordinary person like him. And the arrival of the 2 blood breeds also increased his confidence. How could he be a match for the French blood god and Dracula? Noisy. How could Jiang Tian be polite to him? His face turned cold, and he directly slapped Dracula's head. Smack. Bam. Broken bones flew everywhere, steaming brains and blood gushed out like a tide, and the headless body flew a few meters away. Nathan's beloved son, one of the Rothschild family's chosen successors, Raymond, died an unnatural death. Blood and brain matter splattered all over their bodies and faces, and they all shuddered at the same time. Oh, my brother is dead. Lord Blood God, please avenge my brother. Anna was so scared that her face turned pale, and she screamed. She ran behind Barter, took the opportunity to hug his arm, and rubbed her big chest against his arm. Kang Te-Chu, you are so cruel. James's face was livid, and his eyes were burning with anger, as if he wanted to burn Jiang Tian to ashes. Son. My poor son. Nathan picked up his son's headless body, and fell to the ground with tears in his eyes. He didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so cruel, killing Raymond without a word. Compared to his other 2 children, he actually didn't like Raymond very much. This kid was domineering, lecherous, and had no sense of propriety. His talent in business and politics was also very ordinary. But in any case, he was his own flesh and blood, connected by blood, and the relationship between father and son could not be severed. At this time, the white-haired man had to send off the black-haired man, and he was heartbroken, as if his heart was being cut by a knife. The atmosphere in the hall was extremely cold and solemn. Everyone knew. Jiang Tian killed the blood slave who supported him in front of Barter, and Dracula and Barter would definitely take action. Kang Te-Chu, you are too much, you don't know what kind of powerful existence you are facing. Seeing this scene, Barter was so angry that his face was livid. He slapped the armrest of the chair, and his body turned into a blood-colored stream of light, rushing into the courtyard and standing in the air. Aunt, this sentence, I should be the one saying it to you. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully. Come out. Let us fight to our heart's content. Barter stood in the void, his face suddenly ferocious, his long fangs protruding out, and a murderous aura burst out. As you wish. Jiang Tian slowly walked out of the hall, and step by step, he ascended to the sky. He was very leisurely, but he gave people a feeling that he was invincible. In the cultivation universe, anyone who dared to stop Jiang Tian would be killed without mercy. On Earth, he was even more merciless. What are you waiting for? I'm dying of anxiety. Martel and Dracula teaming up to fight Kang Tae-chu. This is definitely a battle of the strongest in Europe. They are all existences beyond the saint level. In the dense forest outside the ancient castle, many strong people from the dark world were scratching their ears and cheeks, extremely anxious. Why don't we go in and take a look? The alchemist suggested. That won't do. It's too dangerous. When the saints fight, it will destroy the world. The leader of the Iron Screen shook his head, his face full of fear. They are here. Martel is here. Kang Tae-chu is here too. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. Look! It's really them. All of a sudden, the noisy voices disappeared without a trace. Everyone looked up at the sky above the ancient castle, held their breaths, and fixed their gazes. Their eyes were very excited, but they did not even blink once. Good, you have some skills, but tonight, the night of the full moon, the stars are shining, it's the best time to kill you. In the sky, Barter snorted coldly and directly took the initiative to make the first move. One could see with the naked eye that blood chi was rapidly condensing between his fingers and palms, and strands of dazzling blood-red light turned into pieces of red scales. In the end, it condensed into an evil dragon about 50 meters long. This blood-red evil dragon circled around him, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, spitting fire from its mouth, and roaring continuously, making Barter feel even more powerful. Chapter 653. The Dragon of the West was different from Hua Xia. It was like a large lizard, spitting fire from its mouth. It was a kind of hell monster, a ferocious creature. In fact, dragon was more appropriate to translate as flying lizard. The blood-red dragon was too big. Everyone was shocked. The dragon's waist was thicker than a small car. It spanned half of the courtyard and was very visually impactful. Finally, under the expectant gazes of Nathan and the others. As Barter chanted, the blood-red dragon roared and rushed toward Jiang Tian. Boom! While twisting, the dragon's long tail swept and directly slapped a helicopter more than 10 meters away. It was deformed and the ground shook. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. That kind of momentum seemed to be able to destroy the world. It was shocking, suffocating, and numbing. Roar! The blood dragon opened its mouth, which was spewing fire, and bit at Jiang Tian. Barter is indeed the French blood god. He can smash him to pieces in one blow. Mr. Nathan shouted excitedly. He clenched his fist and swung it down heavily, as if he could smash Jiang Tian's head. However, before he finished speaking, Jiang Tian stood proudly in the void. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He smashed the blood-red dragon into pieces with one slap. The blood collapsed and turbulence swept across. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. Father, seeing this, James frowned. Oh! Where's the dragon? Where did the blood-red dragon go? Anna was so scared that her face turned pale and she exclaimed. He can defeat the French. Naturally, he has some ability. I guess Barter didn't use his full strength. He's playing with him. He'll kill him later. Nathan explained awkwardly. Outside the castle, in the spectator area, everyone was excited to watch the show. Kang Tae-chu is too strong. He smashed the blood-red dragon with one slap. The combat master's face changed wildly. As expected of a powerful existence who can fight the French army. His physical body is too strong. Then, he couldn't help but sigh in satisfaction. Sigh, us physical combat type powerhouses have so much potential. Everyone was stunned. Since when did Kang Tae-chu rely on physical combat to win? Who had ever heard of it? The way I see it, Kang Tae-chu isn't just relying on his physical body. At the side, the dark magician said with a solemn expression, "I've done my research on him. He must be a magician of the metal element and can control the metal element. And the most common element in blood is iron." He raised his chin and said proudly, "He and I are the same kind of people. Our field has limitless prospects. Can you not flatter yourself?" Beside him, Alchemist frowned and scolded. "He's from Huaxia. He practices martial arts and spells, but you two are from Europe. His cultivation system is completely different from yours. You're trying to get close to Kang Taechu like this. Don't you guys have any shame? Alchemists are really ambitious and insightful." The Iron Screen leader gave a thumbs up and praised. "We can't just watch the show without principles. After all, Barter is a European, a member of the Dark World in the West." Everyone nodded and cast a look of reverence at the alchemist. They all felt that the alchemist was very insightful and not as tacky as the dark magician and the martial arts master. The alchemist crossed his arms and raised his eyebrows so high that they could fly to the sky. He smiled coldly and arrogantly. "The way I see it, Kang Taechu's move is clearly Huaxia's so-called condensing qi into a weapon, which is to condense elemental power. This is clearly the means of an alchemist. So, alchemy is still more promising." Everyone was speechless. "Well, after beating around the bush for so long, you're still trying to get close to Master Kang. You're also trying to get close to Master Kang. Stop talking, they're fighting again." Just as everyone was talking, the Iron Screen leader exclaimed. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the sky above the castle. They saw that the battlefield had changed in minutes and seconds. "Kid, you're quite capable." Seeing Jiang Tian shatter the blood dragon so easily, Barter was shocked and his expression changed slightly. Although he didn't use his full strength in that attack, not to mention a person, even a building would be razed to the ground. How could Kang Taechu shatter it so easily? Below, everyone from the Rothschild family was also confused and even worried. Barter's attack just now was extremely frightening, but the other party just waved his hand and it was gone. This kind of situation made Barter feel a little embarrassed. His eyes were about to split open, and his handsome face was distorted. He roared crazily and shouted, "That was just the appetizer. I don't even need to use the Blood Breed's secret technique to kill you. I can beat you to death with just my physical body." Then, he turned into a red light and dove towards Jiang Tian. He punched towards Jiang Tian. "I only need one punch to kill you." After all, Barter was a duke of the Blood Breed. His strength was second only to the prince, and he wasn't far from the first-generation vampire. He had killed the previous Zeus and had the strength to crush a saint. If he couldn't kill Jiang Tian with one punch, he wouldn't be able to survive in the vampire world in the future. The vampire family had always been very proud and narcissistic. When this punch was thrown, it was as if a blood-red rainbow had streaked across the sky. It was extremely fast and brought about an ear-piercing sound. Before the fist landed on Jiang Tian's body, the violent pressure arrived first. Many manors and tall buildings behind Jiang Tian collapsed first. The furthest one seemed to be more than a kilometer away. "Oh my god, Barter is serious this time. This punch can definitely destroy a large battleship. As expected of the Zeus who killed the previous Zeus. He's so powerful." Many powerful people looked at this scene in horror. Their hearts beat wildly, and they all retreated to avoid being affected. Barter's strength was too terrifying. Just the wind from his punch could destroy a building. If it hit a human, how terrifying would that be? It's over. There's no need to look anymore. He's dead for sure. In the castle, Nathan once again used an expert's tone to force a conclusion. "Go to hell, despicable Kang Taechu." James roared with a face full of resentment, and a smug smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Come on, Barter. Lord Blood God is the most handsome. Looks are justice. Ugly Kang Taechu, go to hell." On the side, Annalene was ecstatic. Her beautiful eyes were full of worship, and she waved her pink fists to cheer for her idol. In the face of this terrifying punch, Jiang Tian didn't dodge or evade. It was as if he was going to take this punch head-on. This is a punch with the power to shatter mountains and rivers. He actually wants to take it head-on. Many powerful people who were watching the battle were shocked and dumbfounded. Ha, idiot, how dare he compete with the blood god Dark Duke in physical strength, Nathan said loudly, full of sarcasm. Is he crazy? How dare he take this punch head-on? The others were also in disbelief. Even if they were just people of the secular world, they all knew that the blood race won with their powerful physical bodies, and they could even reach the point of immortality. Everyone had also seen it. The wind from this punch was enough to destroy a building. What's more, if it really landed on a person. Ha, good, Kang Tae-chu, you're really arrogant. How dare you take it head-on? Very well, I'll let you know what a real duke is and how terrifying the power of the French blood god is. Barter grinned, and his eyes were full of hatred. Jiang Tian's confidence made him feel that he had received a great humiliation. This punch was already falling toward Jiang Tian's chest. However, just as he finished speaking, his fist was firmly grasped by Jiang Tian. How is this possible? Barter was shocked. He felt an even more majestic and vast force completely controlling his fist that was comparable to the explosion of a missile. This is, around them, Nathan, James, Annalene, and the other Luo family members were shocked and confused. Oh my god, are my eyes playing tricks on me? He can take this punch so easily. Many of the dark overlords in the audience area exclaimed. They couldn't believe it. Even Prince Dracula's expression changed slightly, and his pupils suddenly contracted. Barter's punch was like a meteorite falling from the sky, but Kang Tae-chu blocked it so easily. This was unbelievable. Jiang Tian was like the boxing champion Mike Tyson, catching a 3-year-old's punch effortlessly. Break! Barter's arm shook violently, and the tip of his fist rushed forward. He didn't hold back at all, but he couldn't move an inch forward. Barter's arm was shaking crazily. The path forward was blocked, and the force could only be released backward. In the midst of the blood, a terrifying force that could topple mountains and overturn seas followed his arm and exploded behind him. Kaboom! The sea of blood was surging, and a 1-meter-wide crack appeared on the ground behind him. The crack spread to the castle 100 meters away, and the terrifying force cracked a big hole in the castle, causing the buildings to collapse. In the courtyard, several helicopters were blown dozens of meters away. The blades were shattered, and the fuselage was twisted into scrap metal. The range of the impact was too wide, and the destructive force was terrifying. However, this violent force couldn't even make Jiang Tian move at all. What kind of evil technique is this? Why can you restrain my power? Barter's handsome face was full of shock and disbelief. He realized that he had seriously underestimated Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian definitely had the power to surpass the saint level. Could it be that he was a legendary saint king, saint venerable, or even, a real god? Barter didn't dare to think about it, and his hair stood on end. You talk too much. Jiang Tian sneered. He controlled Barter's fist with one hand and raised the other hand high. You are a duke of the blood race, right? Jiang Tian sneered, and then slapped Barter's face. Slap! 5 clear fingerprints appeared on Barter's face, and the surrounding air froze. Even Barter himself was dumbfounded. The members of the Rothschild family didn't dare to make a sound, and they looked at the scene in front of them with incredulity. The dignified Dark Duke Barter had been slapped in front of everyone. That was the blood god who could defeat tens of thousands of soldiers by himself. He was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. But now, he was slapped like a child who had made a mistake. The point was, he couldn't dodge it. Chapter 654. Who would believe this if it was spread out? A duke of the blood breed, the infamous blood god of France, was slapped in the face. This had never happened in France, or even in the history of Europe. My god, he actually slapped in the face. Kang Taechu's strength is actually this terrifying. The expressions of the many experts of the Dark Association who were watching the battle from the periphery changed drastically. Their hearts were filled with shock and trepidation. Only those who had reached their level would understand what Jiang Tian's fighting style meant. This meant that in the battle with Barter, Jiang Tian had completely dominated. He had completely suppressed Barter's terrifying strength and many of the blood breed's secret techniques. He didn't even have the strength to resist or dodge. Otherwise, how could he slap someone in the face? This wasn't a street fight. This was a battle of life and death that could destroy the world. Barter was not only powerful, but also extremely arrogant. How could he endure being slapped in front of everyone? If this spread out, he would become the laughing stock of the dark world. He wouldn't be able to raise his head for the rest of his life. In an instant, Barter's eyes turned red. His monstrous anger almost exploded his chest. He bared his fangs and blue veins popped out. He looked up to the sky and roared, "I will, slap." Jiang Tian slapped him again. Barter's body staggered and almost fell to the ground. "Your outfit is quite gaudy. Heroic and cool, a cock costume. You want to be a wedding master? We are all humans. Why are you pretending to be a chicken?" Barter was hit until he saw stars. Blood flowed from his mouth and his cheeks were broken. But he shockingly found that he couldn't use any of the blood breed's secret techniques in front of Jiang Tian. His earth-shattering strength was completely restrained. He was like an ordinary person without any strength to fight back. Barter couldn't help but be horrified. Before he could react, another slap landed on his face. "You're quite handsome, aren't you? Continue acting cool for me." Jiang Tian slapped him again. Can you not hit my face?" Barter was so angry that he was about to cry. "I will hit your face. Who told you to be more handsome than me?" Jiang Tian slapped Barter again, sending one of his demonic fangs flying. "Blood god? Ha, how dare you call yourself a god? Why don't you show it to me?" "Paw!" Jiang Tian chuckled and slapped Barter again. Blood spurted out from Barter's nose. Everyone was dumbfounded. Barter was also dumbfounded. The world was spinning, and he felt dizzy. Nathan felt that everything in front of him was like a nightmare. It was very unreal. This was too unbelievable. In front of Kang Taechu, the Dark Duke was like an ordinary person who couldn't even truss a chicken. He was slapped here and there by Kang Taechu. "Aren't you handsome?" "Paw!" Jiang Tian slapped him. "Aren't you very arrogant?" Another slap. At this time, Barter finally reacted. He was so angry that his hair stood up like a hedgehog. The Dark Duke? Blood god? Jiang Tian was full of sarcasm as he slapped him again. He was too lazy to say anything. Everyone knew that this was not the same level of suppression. The Dark Duke Barter was beaten like a dog. He couldn't fight back at all. In front of Jiang Tian, he didn't even have the strength to fight back. He didn't even have the dignity. Paw! The last slap had the power to destroy the world. Barter was like a spinning top that had been whipped. He was sent flying dozens of meters away and crashed heavily into the ruins of the castle. His face was covered in dust. After a long time, the Dark Duke Barter crawled out and shouted angrily, "Kang Taechu, you have completely infuriated me. Today, even if I have to waste 300 years of my blood essence, I will tear you into pieces." Barter was so angry that his eyes turned red. Even when facing the Holy See, the Palace of Gods, and tens of thousands of European troops, he could deal with them calmly and escape. And now, after being slapped by Jiang Tian, he was so angry that he was about to explode. He felt so wrong that he even wanted to cry. "Sky of blood and fire!" Barter shouted angrily. The blood essence all over his body was ignited, turning into pillars of fire that shot into the sky. "Barter, you are taking too much of a risk." Dracula's expression changed drastically. he exclaimed and wanted to stop him. This sky of blood and fire was Barter's ultimate move. By burning his blood essence, he would gain 10 times more combat power than before. However, once he used this move, he would lose half of his life. This was a move that risked his life. No one can stop me. Today, I will kill this bastard. Barter's nails and fangs grew rapidly. His pupils contracted to the size of a needle tip. His eyes were like the eyes of a snake, becoming more and more demonic. Whoosh! 2 wings full of bone spikes emerged from his back like a bat. They were about 10 meters long and broke through his clothes. Blood chi surged around his body like a surging tide. A monstrous murderous aura shot into the sky. Blood chi, hostility, and murderous aura formed an imposing aura that shot into the sky like a mushroom cloud exploding from a cannonball. Today, he was humiliated by Jiang Tian. If he didn't kill Jiang Tian, he wouldn't be able to wash away this humiliation. In an instant, between heaven and earth, dark clouds rolled and covered the sky. Blood chi filled the air as if it was boiling. Red light filled every inch of space as if some forbidden power had been triggered. I like brave warriors with a heart, but I will never let him expire. Brave warrior, I will devour you bite by bite. I will carefully taste your delicious and sweet blood. Barter revealed his fangs. He waved his cloak and raised his hand to point at Jiang Tian. As soon as his words landed, the blood chi between heaven and earth suddenly converged and turned into an incomparably viscous black mist that wrapped around Jiang Tian. This black mist was about 50 meters long. It was viscous, slippery, and soft. There wasn't the slightest bit of leakage. Sometimes it was like an octopus, sometimes it was like a python. It changed in an instant and presented a mysterious and gloomy beauty. Whoosh! Wherever the black mist passed, plants withered, birds fell to the ground, and wild cats stiffened. They turned into ashes in the blink of an eye and all vitality was taken away. Even the members of the Luo family who were a few hundred meters away from the black mist died in an instant and fell to the ground. The Black Death Curse. Back off. Seeing this scene, many overlords who were watching the battle turned pale and exclaimed like mice seeing a cat. It was one of the 10 most powerful curses in the European vampire world. It was so fierce that anyone who heard it would be terrified. Rumor had it that this terrible curse was taught to Barter by the first vampire, the strongest blood ancestor, Cain. Barter had once used this curse to kill tens of thousands of British elites during the war between England and France. They were all infected with the Black Death and died in pain and struggle. The handsome one will definitely win. Annalyn was excited. Maybe Martyr would turn the tables this time, but it wasn't certain. I once used this curse to kill 37,000 people with a single word. Today, I'll use your blood essence to strengthen my Black Death curse. Barter's energy surged as he waved his hands. The power of the curse even split the dark clouds in the sky. This curse is big but useless. It's like garbage. Jiang Tian sneered and shook his head. You're still so stubborn even when you're about to die. Barter shouted angrily. He formed a spell with his hands and stomped his right foot on the ground. Bang! A deep pit appeared on the ground and it shook violently as if there was an earthquake. He pushed his Dharma power to the extreme. Boom! Roar! The black curse kept changing forms. It sometimes looked like a skull and it moved its molars and chewed crazily. At other times, it looked like a demon with goat horns. It roared and waved its steel fork in all directions. The Black Death curse that looked like black glue completely wrapped around Jiang Tian, constantly pulling and spinning him. Clang, clang, clang. A few villas were crushed into powder by the Black Death curse. Mountains were razed to the ground and trees and stones were flying everywhere. The manifestation of mental energy, the ability to interfere with reality, and the fact that it possessed such great power was already shocking. Not to mention that this was the most vicious curse in the world. A drop of it could kill a transcendent grandmaster. The Black Death curse formed by 700 years of my essence and blood. Even the immortals of Huaxia would die here. Barter was so tired that blood spurted out of his eyes, nose, mouth. His face looked even more terrifying. However, he was smiling triumphantly, and there was a hint of madness in his smile. Kang Te Chu, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how powerful you are, you will still die. He had burned his blood essence to increase his power by 10 times and formed the Black Death curse. He was confident that he could kill even an earth-level deity from the east or a sage king from the west. How dare you offend the Black Earl and challenge the dignity of the blood god of France? Only death awaits you. As soon as he finished. Then, a faint voice came from the power of the curse. Have you had enough? This voice caused the smiles that were gradually blooming on everyone's faces to instantly freeze, and they could no longer smile. The voice was a bit sarcastic, cold and impatient, as if an adult had seen a naughty child. Subsequently, everyone saw to their astonishment that Jiang Tian walked out from the ball of black gelatinous curse without the slightest injury, and he seemed relaxed and carefree. The next moment, Jiang Tian stepped on the air and crossed a few hundred meters in a blink. He arrived in front of Barter and slapped him again. Bang! Barter fell to the ground after being hit. His head smashed a deep hole in the marble floor and his body sank into it. Jiang Tian walked to the edge of the hole and looked down at Barter. He said sarcastically, "Is this your trump card?" Half of Barter's head was shattered, but it was regenerated by the secret art of the kindred. You don't even have the right to make me use 10% of my power. Jiang Tian's words were like a heavy hammer that hit Barter's chest, and also like countless slaps that hit his face continuously. What did you say? At this time, he gritted his teeth and his face was full of anger and unwillingness. Then, it gradually turned into endless shock and fear. I said, with your power, you don't even have the right to make me use my real power. With your level and combat power, you still want to protect the Rothschild family and punish me? You are too arrogant and narcissistic. Are you kidding me? Jiang Tian said sarcastically. I'm going to kill you. Barter's face turned red and he felt humiliated. He struggled to get up and roared angrily. Really? You don't repent. Jiang Tian laughed and raised his right hand. Then, he swatted down gently as if he was swatting a fly. Boom! A giant golden palm about 10 meters long with endless Tao inscriptions smashed down like the palm of a giant spirit. Chapter 655. You can't kill me. I'm immortal. Barter roared angrily and struggled with all his might. He used the secret techniques of the Blood Clan, but it was useless. Pa! He was slapped 10 meters deep into the ground. His bones were shattered, and his internal organs were scattered everywhere. He was badly mutilated and looked like a pile of meat paste. I don't accept this. You can't kill me. Barter roared again. Before he could condense his body, Jiang Tian stomped on him again. Boom! Barter was trampled and sank more than 10 meters. At this time, his blood was gushing out. His limbs were broken, and his internal organs were scattered everywhere. There was a big hole in his chest. The next moment, Jiang Tian waved his hand, and Barter flew up uncontrollably. Jiang Tian grabbed Barter's hair and dragged him out like an eagle grabbing a chick. Then he dragged the famous Dark Duke as if he was dragging a rag and walked towards the Rothschild family with big strides. Everyone saw Barter falling down with blood all over his body, leaving a long bloody line on the ground. They couldn't help but feel numb. Nathan staggered back, James' face was pale, and Anna was so scared that she fell to the ground. Was this a battle? Was this a battle that everyone was confident in? No, this wasn't a battle at all. This was just a one-sided beating and abuse. That's right. This was abuse. There was no battle, no equal competition, and no counterattack. There was only one person fighting. Jiang Tian was violently beating Barter, and the latter didn't even have the strength to fight back. The whole place was dead silent. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Including the strong people who were watching the battle, everyone's face was pale. They didn't dare to say a word. They were scared out of their wits. Even Dracula was so scared that his face was pale. His legs were weak, and his whole body was trembling. He was also a Duke of the Blood Clan, and his strength was on par with Barter. If he joined the battle, he wouldn't be any better. You're just a stinky vampire bat. You want to fight with me? Chi. Jiang Tian's right-hand fingers sank deeply into Barter's skull. Amidst the blood-curdling screams, Jiang Tian's expression was calm and even cold as he suddenly pulled out his head and spine from his torso. His spine was dripping with blood. A sea of blood was surging up and down, emitting a magnificent red light. When the spine was pulled out, Barter's body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. His muscles had collapsed and shriveled, his skin was wrinkled and dull, and age spots had sprouted. He was all skin and bones, and his fingers were like withered tree branches. His blood essence was drawn out by Jiang Tian using the 1,000 gold ancestor. Without the nourishment of his blood essence, his body, which had a lifespan of 700 years, instantly aged and collapsed. Kang Teichu's methods are too ruthless. Everyone from the Luo family was scared out of their wits. They couldn't even stand properly. Too strong. It's like crushing an ant. Many experts of the dark sect had fearful looks in their eyes. They were scared out of their wits and a chill ran down their spines. It was as if they had seen a devil. Jiang Tian tossed the head with the spine in front of Dracula and said with a calm expression, "Don't worry. Dracula, didn't you want to seek justice for the Rothschild family? Come." The reason why Dracula said this before was that he coveted Jiang Tian's power and influence in Sidoni. If he could control Sidoni and become a god that the people believed in like Jiang Tian, then he would have endless blood slaves to enjoy. He could turn Sidoni into a country ruled by the blood race and restore the lost glory of the blood race. When Jiang Tian rejected him, he publicly said that he wanted to seek justice for the Rothschild family. But now? Did he dare? Honorable Sir Kang Teichu, this is all a misunderstanding. I definitely don't dare. Dracula trembled and quickly bowed deeply. He revealed a humble smile and begged for mercy in the most respectful tone he had ever used in his life. Martel was killed so quickly, and Dracula, also submitted. At this moment, Hera rushed over on holy light and saw this shocking scene. She couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Smack! Jiang Tian slapped Dracula's face with the back of his hand and sent him flying to the ground. Dracula was beaten until blood flowed from his mouth and his face was covered in dirt. He was a blood race at the Duke level and had thousands of blood slaves and believers under his command. In the Middle Ages, he would be on equal footing with the royal family and nobles and would be treated with respect. But now, he was beaten to the ground. Kang Teichu, he was extremely embarrassed and his face flushed red. He crawled up and instinctively glared at Jiang Tian, but he restrained himself. That's right, he was angry but didn't dare to say anything because Jiang Tian's strength wasn't something he could resist. Martel was a good example. Dracula was so regretful that his intestines turned green. Had he known that Kang Teichu was so powerful, he wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess even if he was beaten to death. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? Although Dracula had tolerated it, that didn't mean that Jiang Tian would let him go. Jiang Tian slapped down with a cold snort. What are you looking at? You're courting death. Kneel. Although they were both dukes, Dracula's strength and physique were superior to Martel's. Otherwise, Martel wouldn't have been so respectful toward him. Despite his peerless physique, Dracula's knees went soft under Jiang Tian's palm, and he fell to his knees. At this moment, Dracula felt as though a 10,000-ton mountain was pressing down on his body. All his bones were about to shatter and turn into meat paste. After he knelt on the ground, his upper body couldn't take it anymore, and he prostrated himself on the ground in front of Jiang Tian. Hiss, hiss. At this moment, all the members of the Rothschild family gasped in shock. Seeing this scene, whether it was James or Anna, their faces were as pale as paper, and their bodies were emitting cold air. They trembled as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Even Nathan's face was filled with despair. His white hair fluttered in the wind, and his straight waist instantly bent down as though he had aged 10 years in an instant. At this moment, Jiang Tian slowly turned around, looked at the Rothschild family members, and sneered, "Nathan, this is what you're relying on? This is your last trump card? Trash. It's really trash. You dare to provoke me with this?" At this moment, Nathan's face was ashen, and his eyes were lifeless. His empty eyes were filled with regret and despair. In the face of Jiang Tian's questioning, he didn't move at all. It was as though he had lost his soul and was numb. Originally, he thought that Jiang Tian would definitely die against Martel. After all, Martel was an invincible French legend in his mind. But the result? From the beginning to the end, Jiang Tian had been suppressing Martel. He even said that Martel didn't have the qualifications to fight with Jiang Tian. In the end, he was directly skinned alive by Jiang Tian. As for Dracula, he was pressed down by Jiang Tian to kneel on the ground like a toad, but he didn't dare to say a word of resistance. At this time, Dracula was trembling all over. His face was pale and full of fear and uneasiness. Obviously, Jiang Tian's palm was heavier than a mountain. He couldn't resist at all. Why? Nathan screamed in despair in his heart. Why were these legendary Duke-level blood breeds, who were invincible in 10,000 battles, as weak as a 3-year-old child in front of this Huaxia kid? He didn't even have a chance to fight back. If I remember correctly, Iris and Marshall persuaded you twice and gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Jiang Tian shook his head gently. These words made Nathan regret even more. It was like a sharp sword that stabbed into his heart. Endless regret filled his heart. He couldn't take it anymore and sat down on the ground. Yes. In fact, Sidoni's offer of $50 billion in compensation was more of a symbolic meaning. It was also to deter the multinational corporations that polluted Sidoni's North Bay. If the Luo family chose to apologize and compensate, with Iris and Marshall's mediation, Jiang Tian might not really ask for $50 billion. Maybe $10 billion would be enough. In that case, the Luo family would have a chance to make a comeback. And just now, Marshall had persuaded him again. If he admitted his mistake, he would lose his wealth, but at least the Luo family bloodline would be preserved. But now, everyone knew that what awaited them was destruction, removal from the world, and death. At this time, Nathan was also very regretful. It was his arrogance and stubbornness that pushed the Rothschild family into the abyss again and again. If that's the case, then, go to hell. Jiang Tian smiled, and a murderous aura spread out. However, Nathan was indeed the most successful patriarch in the history of the Rothschild family. Even if he was about to die, he still had to give it his all. Begging for mercy was death, resisting was also death. He couldn't escape death, but maybe there was still a chance of survival if he gave it his all. Thinking of this, a flame of courage burned in Nathan's heart. He suddenly straightened his body and took a step forward. His slightly widened eyes were full of killing intent. Honorable Mr. Kang Tae-chu, I admit that the Luo family has lost this time, lost completely. The French army has been defeated, and Martel is dead, but the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness are still around. The more he spoke, the more he felt that his words were reasonable, and the more fluent he became. He spoke with fervor and assurance. You invaded Europe, massacred thousands of soldiers, and committed countless crimes. The Holy See won't forgive you. You killed Martel, the blood slave of Cain, the descendant of the prince. The Holy See won't forgive you either. Mr. Kang Tae-chu, you are indeed strong, but so what? Compared to the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness, you are still too far away. They can make you an enemy of the whole world with just a word, and you won't have a place to hide. And whether it is in the Holy See or the Covenant of Darkness, I have deep connections. If you let me go, then fine, I will let bygones be bygones and shake hands with Mr. Jiang. I will cover up the fact that you killed Martel and convince the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness not to do anything to Mr. Jiang. Moreover, the Luo family has great influence in Europe, just like the California Consortium in America. Once I become friends with Mr. Jiang, I will naturally support you like Marshall, be loyal to you, and become your most powerful helper in France and Europe. But if you insist on doing things your own way, the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness won't go easy on you. I think with Master Kang's wisdom, he will make a rational choice between having one more close comrade or two more mortal enemies. At this point, he put one hand on his waist and straightened his back like a sword. He looked at Jiang Tian with a faint smile, full of confidence. Chapter 656. Your Excellency Kang Tae-chu, why don't you consider Mr. Nathan's suggestion? At this moment, even Dracula agreed and suggested with an apologetic smile. Nathan, this old fellow, was very charismatic and an expert negotiator. He was good at both coercion and bribery. Shut up. Jiang Tian slapped Dracula and sent him flying a few hundred meters away. Then, he turned around and looked at Nathan. Murderous intent appeared in his eyes, like a sharp longsword. Nathan, I didn't expect you to be so stupid. Bribery is enough, but you still think you're smart enough to threaten me. Ha, the Holy See and the Gathering of Darkness? Make the world my enemy. In my opinion, they're nothing. Today, I won't leave a single one of you Rothschild family alive. You'll all die. Jiang Tian glanced at Hera and the other experts and shouted in a domineering manner, as for Hera, Dracula, and the other powerful fighters of the Dark Association, I'll have to trouble you to spread my words today. I, Kang Tae-chu, am here. Whoever doesn't like me, feel free to come find me. Whoever wants to be my enemy, feel free to come and try. I'm not targeting you, but the Gathering of Darkness, the Holy See, and even the entire world. Make the world my enemy. When have I, Kang Tae-chu, ever been afraid? Jiang Tian flung his sleeves and laughed maniacally. Jiang Tian's words were like a rumbling thunderclap that shook the minds of everyone to the point they were on the verge of collapse. Arrogant. Too arrogant. The pride and confidence to run rampant in the world. The unparalleled dominance. Many of the powerful fighters of the Dark Association hiding in the forest changed their expressions. Their hearts were in turmoil, and they were shocked beyond words. In the Battle of Sidoni Cass Lake, Jiang Tian had trampled on the Hall of Gods, Blue Storm, and the Winter Soldiers, the three top organizations in the world. In just one night, Jiang Tian had defeated one of the 5 permanent members of the world, France, and killed the French blood god, making the Rothschild family like a stray dog. Now, they were threatening to challenge the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness. This was simply too heaven-defying. This was truly going against the whole world. Earth could no longer contain him. Honorable Sir Kang Tae-chu, I believe that the Covenant of Darkness has no enmity towards you. Don't be instigated by a despicable person like Nathan. Count's heart was pounding. He could not believe it. With a bitter taste in his mouth, he bowed deeply to Jiang Tian. He didn't dare to accept this challenge. A Duke-level vampire was very powerful and had a high status. However, there were still the princes and the blood ancestor above him, as well as the blood ancestor Cain. He didn't even have a seat in the Covenant of Darkness. Who knew what kind of attitude the blood ancestors and the top old monsters had toward Kang Tae-chu? Mr. Jiang, you should have seen the friendly attitude of the Palace of Gods during the battle with France. I think the Holy See should also love peace. Hera smiled wryly, shaking her head and sighing inwardly. This Master Kang was too domineering. Did he have to turn the world upside down? Honorable Sir Kang Tae-chu, please forgive my rudeness. Seeing that his threat was ineffective, Nathan's face turned pale. He was shocked, and his knees went weak. He wanted to kneel and beg for mercy. It's too late. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and emotionless. He snorted and used a secret technique to deprive his lifespan. Die. In an instant, Nathan's expression suddenly became dull, and his eyes became empty. A wisp of vitality visible to the naked eye disappeared. His body stiffened, and he fell straight to the ground, dying an unnatural death. Honorable Kang Tae-chu, please spare my life. I'm willing to serve you. The few beautiful young ladies of the Luo family were all scared witless, and scrambled to pounce on Jiang Tian. Die. But a cold voice sounded. They were only halfway there when their heads exploded, and their hearts exploded. They all fell to the ground in different postures and died. I'm willing to be your female slave. Please don't kill me. Anna didn't even care about her dignity. She took off her clothes and was naked, revealing her jade-like skin and exquisite curves. She knelt on the ground and crawled toward Jiang Tian with tears on her face. She wanted to sell her beauty to save her life. Die. Jiang Tian didn't even look at her and turned her into a cold corpse in the blink of an eye. Leaving her corpse intact was already merciful. In an instant, James, Anna, and more than 200 men, women, and children of the Rothschild family all bled from their orifices or their heads exploded. They fell to the ground in an instant and died an unnatural death. Jiang Tian took out several ropes from his storage ring and used a secret technique to tie up all the corpses. He rose into the air and flew toward the city of Paris. Honorable Kang Tae-chu, what are you doing? Hera's eyes showed a trace of fear. She rode the holy light and chased after him. Oh, parade. Scare those Parisian nobles and let them know the consequences of offending me. Jiang Tian was expressionless. Seeing Hera's dumbfounded expression, Jiang Tian said coldly, "Don't look at me like that. I'm not a good person and I don't care about humanitarianism. These people think that they're nobles and above others. They don't have a trace of blood on their hands and are gentle and elegant. But in fact, they've killed much more people than I have." To the ordinary people, this war had started suddenly, but it had ended even more suddenly. The battle started at 8 at night and ended at 1 in the morning. As for Jiang Tian's killing of Martel and his descendants, it was a small commotion and didn't attract much attention. In the next few days, many media outlets refuted the rumors and claimed that the so-called god Sidoni didn't exist. It was a high-speed aircraft that Sidoni had recently developed. It looked like a human. How is that possible? I saw a living person, and he was Asian. Black hair, black eyes, and white clothes. How could it be an aircraft? They're lying. They're deceiving and fooling the people. How did the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre in Paris get smashed? Why did a garbage transport ship appear? Faced with such a flawed explanation, some people shouted in dissatisfaction. In response, another media outlet said with certainty, a strong tropical storm broke out and blew these ships over. Many meteorologists and environmental experts were interviewed and listed similar events that had happened around the world. They used all kinds of data and theories to support that this phenomenon was completely natural. Lies. A bunch of nonsense. It was clearly the god Sidoni who smashed down. Those ships are from the New World. Let's go online and take a look. Yes, let's upload the pictures I downloaded online and slap their faces. Someone suggested. However, people around the world suddenly realized. They had deleted all the news about Sidoni's god that they had reposted on Twitter, Facebook, and any other media outlets. Even if they were posted again, they would be deleted in seconds. They couldn't even post it. They're trying to control public opinion. They don't want us to know the truth of the world. A wise man sighed meaningfully. In fact, this was indeed forcefully promoted by the intelligence departments of the major countries around the world. Many media outlets and internet companies cooperated with the implementation, but at the same time, they also received Jiang Tian's tacit consent. Jiang Tian didn't want the United States and other major countries to feel that the old order of technology and civilization would be broken by him. That would make them restless, and they would probably shed all pretense of cordiality with him. Jiang Tian only wanted to cultivate and leave Earth as soon as possible. He didn't want to be disturbed by these secular forces. Civilizations had their own processes and destinies. From beginning to end, Jiang Tian didn't want to subvert their order. He just wanted to find a place to live and cultivate as a stepping stone to leave Earth. Then, in the next few days, Jiang Tian dragged the body of the Rothschild family across France and Europe. He began to hunt down hundreds of Martel's descendants. These were all kindred below the duke level, and their strength was equivalent to the transcendent state or even lower. Jiang Tian didn't encounter any decent resistance at all. A few days later, the rope behind Jiang Tian was hung with thousands of bodies. There were kindred, Martel's support, and Rothschild's allies. These bodies were densely spread out like a giant cape made of corpses floating behind Jiang Tian. Just like that, Jiang Tian wore the corpse cloak and swaggered across the sky above France, England, Germany, and other European countries. That devil is here again. Devil. Devil. All the European people who witnessed this scene were so frightened that they screamed and ran for their lives. But from beginning to end, the military of the European countries didn't fire a single shot. They turned a blind eye. They even refuted the rumors that it was a movie made by a film company and asked the people not to panic. They tried all kinds of fancy lies to cover up the truth. In the end, Jiang Tian dragged the bodies and appeared above the Élysée Palace. Sanchi, everyone, do you see this? This is the end of the Rothschild family. This is the result of provoking me. After Jiang Tian appeared, he shouted coldly with a domineering aura. This scene shocked many President Sanchi and the cabinet members, as well as the heads of the major families. Their legs turned to jelly, and they couldn't help but kowtow to Jiang Tian. Also, I've killed the French blood god, Martel, and his descendants. They're all evil vampires. Do you want to give me a reward? Jiang Tian smiled and joked, don't you have demon hunters and bounty hunters in France? Master Kong, please don't kill anymore. France is already in chaos. President Sanchi was about to cry. He wanted to kneel to Jiang Tian and beg Jiang Tian to stop. France was a country that loved revolutions. They would overthrow something for no reason and cause trouble in the streets. President Sanchi's clumsy performance in a series of changes had caused great disgust among the people. The whole of Paris wailed and was buried by the stinking garbage. Overnight, many of France's historical sites, the brightest pearls on the crown of human civilization, were all overshadowed and turned into ashes. The capital of art and romance is dead. It has left us forever. Paris without Mona Lisa's smile is a dead city. Life is so empty. My life has no meaning. A street artist hung the southeast branch of a French parasol tree beside the ruins of the Louvre and wrote these words with red paint under his feet, dripping with blood. So many people committed suicide that there was a large police force patrolling the area around the Seine River 24 hours a day. This was because there would be someone jumping into the river every few minutes. There was no way they would miss. There were even rumors of doomsday. It was said that 2012 was coming and the end of the world was coming. This was a sign of doomsday. Despair and anger filled the air, and the aura of doomsday enveloped France. The citizens of Paris took to the streets to protest the decadent French government. Sanchi couldn't take it anymore. Chapter 657. The French people believed that it was President Sanchi's inflexibility, inefficiency that led to France's huge losses. France was in an uproar. In Paris and other major cities, citizens demonstrated on a large scale and broke out into serious riots. They clashed with the police and the army. The valiant masses took the water cannons and tear gas from the police and were invincible. Many places were spontaneously taken over by the masses. Workers took over factories, radical doctors took over medical societies, actors closed theaters, and even some clergy declared themselves revolutionary. The battle quickly entered a stalemate. On the streets of Paris and other cities, there were fortifications everywhere. Smoke filled the air and flames soared into the sky. There were at least 200,000 people involved in the riots. Thousands of people were killed or injured in a day. The whole of France was completely out of control. The government and the army were in a half-paralyzed state. The military and police patrol cars and radio vans kept roaming the streets and shouting, calling for restraint and calm. But no one listened. Many police cars and military vehicles were attacked and destroyed. 3 days after the riots, there was a serious shortage of drinking water and food. The citizens began to rob supermarkets, banks, and occupy factories. Everything was out of control. Now, France's CAC 40 index futures had fallen for a few days in a row, with a total decline of more than 30%. In addition, Britain's FTSE 100 index and Germany's DAX index were also affected and fell continuously. Jiang Tian floated down, and a large number of corpses fell to the ground behind him. At this time, a middle-aged man with an extraordinary bearing stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Your Excellency Kang Tae-chu, I am the President of the European Commission, Jung. I pay my respects to you. Jiang Tian only nodded slightly to him. Ronga bowed and begged in a low voice, his face full of awe and fear. In the past week, you have been chasing Martel's descendants all over Europe. The intelligence agencies of the European Union not only did not stop you, but also cooperated and supported you. I think this has already shown the sincerity of the European Union. But there are still many descendants of the blood clan that have not been killed. Jiang Tian shook his head with a heavy expression and said with a look of concern for the country and the people. These disgusting blood clan have no respect for law and order. They destroy the stable and peaceful social order and bully the kind and simple European people. They have brought too much suffering to Europe. I deeply sympathize with him. As a good young man with a sense of justice and ideals, how can I just sit by and watch? I swear to the lamp that I will annihilate all the filthy things. Your Excellency, please stop. As long as you are willing to stop, the EU will agree to all your conditions. Jung almost jumped up in fright. After the Covenant of Darkness, the secular government, and the Holy See reached a truce agreement, the blood race had gone into hibernation. They no longer drank the blood of the living, nor did they create blood slaves. They had almost never provoked the secular world. The blood they needed came mostly from blood bags purchased by the secular families that worshipped them, or from animal blood. On the other hand, every time Jiang Tian killed a member of the blood clan, he would destroy a large area and cause chaos. Everyone was in a state of panic. One had to know that most of these vampires lived in the rich and old families. Jiang Tian and the other vampires couldn't avoid killing 1 or 2 tycoons as punishment. It would definitely affect those wealthy families. As a result, everyone in Europe's upper-class society felt insecure and terrified. Those tycoons cherished their lives the most. They closed down their businesses and scrambled to escape. They transferred a large amount of their assets and wanted to emigrate overseas. This led to a large capital outflow in the entire Eurozone. France's value against the US dollar, Huaxia currency, and gold had plummeted. The entire euro currency system was about to collapse. Moreover, the rich and powerful were now in an uproar. They had joined forces to pressure the governments of various countries and the EU. Some of the rich and powerful were even planning for their countries to leave the EU. If Jiang Tian continued like this, the EU would definitely go bankrupt. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, "If that's the case, then let's sit down and have a good talk." He had been wandering around Europe recently and had caused a lot of trouble. Chen Jinming must have gathered all kinds of capital to short the euro and the French CAC 40 index. He must have made a lot of money. Jiang Tian didn't care about these worldly wealth. After all, he was already in the late stage of qi refinement and had a chance to enter the foundation establishment. But his allies cared. The people of the Medicine King Group and Sidonie also needed these wealth. Jiang Tian came to the Élysée Palace, and under the escort of many people, he walked into a grand and majestic meeting room. After sitting down, Jiang Tian tapped his fingers on the armrest and said, "My conditions are simple. I want the EU market to be open to the Medicine King Group. I want to exempt them from customs duties and give them preferential treatment. Ever since Jiang Tian took over Tanjuan's business, the Cherry Blossom Society, and the Singapore Chinese Society, the Medicine King Group had been selling in Southeast Asia. With the cooperation of Jiang Tian and Marshall, the Medicine King Group had successfully entered the American market under the promotion of the California Financial Group. Now, only the EU market was left. The EU was the richest economy in the world. Most of its 26 member states were developed countries. It was a huge market. As soon as Jiang Tian finished speaking, the faces of many European Union officials turned pale, as if they had lost their parents. The Medicine King Group was like a tiger that had descended from the mountain. Its medicine was extremely powerful and it was almost invincible in the Southeast Asian market. Now that they had entered the European Union market, they would definitely pose a great threat to those established biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies. They might even be suppressed to the point of being wiped out. Previously, the $2 trillion USD war reparations was a bit too much for you. But you have to compensate us for the Rothschild family's wealth. France can add a little more and make it $100 billion US. France's President Sanchi was even more depressed after hearing this. He wanted to kill himself with a piece of tofu. The Rothschild family only had 9 billion euros and France had to contribute the rest. It was like cutting meat with a blunt knife. It's really difficult for us to fulfill these conditions. It's too difficult. Cold sweat broke out on Jung's forehead and his body trembled. If that's the case, I will slowly hunt down those blood descendants. Jiang Tian shook his head and said, I'm happy to do something good for the French people. I don't want the reward. I have the spirit of internationalism. No, no. Don't worry, I will do my best to make this happen. Jung and Sanchi almost jumped out of their seats. Very well. Jiang Tian stretched his body and said lazily, that's right. Jung, Sanchi, get ready as soon as possible. In 3 days, come with me to Sidonie to sign the relevant treaty. Jiang Tian was very cautious. This time, he was fast and quickly attacked the hinterland of France. He attacked the capital directly and did not give them the opportunity to release nuclear weapons. But if he swaggered back to his country and crossed the Atlantic Ocean, they might be able to release nuclear weapons. Yes. Honorable Kang Tae-chu. Jung and Sang-chi stood up and bowed helplessly as they agreed. After the meeting with Jiang Tian, President Sanchi returned to the Élysée Palace and gave a speech in the ruins. We will thoroughly investigate the Bibu Bay pollution incident and severely punish the New World Company. We will give the people of Sidonie and the world an explanation. It was drizzling that day. Sanchi stood under the tricolor flag, frowning, waving his fists with grief and indignation, reading the speech written by the think tank. Of course, it was absolutely impossible for the leaders of Western countries to let others hold an umbrella for him, so Sanchi's face was covered with rain, which added to his anger and sadness. Some were happy and some were sad. France and the European Union suffered heavy losses in this battle, but Jiang Tian's camp gained a lot. Mr. Jiang is really amazing. He actually defeated France. Mr. Marshall, you really didn't misjudge him. At the celebration party of Deer Leap Wine Cellar, Facebook founder Mike said excitedly. Yes. Mr. Jiang is the real figure standing at the top of the world. We will never suffer if we follow him. Marshall sipped his red wine and nodded approvingly, unable to hide his smile. This time, he followed Chen Jinming to short the euro and the French stock index, and the profits exceeded the family's profits in the past 10 years. Moreover, he controlled 30% of the shares of the French nuclear power group at a super low price. After France stabilized, the stock price would rise, and the profit would be several times higher. Then, he solemnly raised his glass to Paris Hilton next to him and said with a smile, Paris, thank you for introducing Mr. Jiang to me. Here's to you. Ha, this is the real Deer Leap Wine Cellar, the bottle of 1973 Cabernet Sauvignon that defeated the Bordeaux Chateau. Paris took a sip and said with a smile. Mr. Jiang hunted down a superpower alone. I think we should give him a title. Marshall drank a lot of red wine and became more and more excited. He suddenly laughed heartily. What title? Everyone's face was full of anticipation. National Hunter, Jiang Laigua. Marshall raised his eyebrows slightly and said with a stern expression. He made the final decision and made the most colorful footnote for this international dispute that attracted the attention of the world. Jiang Laigua. Invincible, hunting down a superpower of a superpower, how appropriate. In the corner, Jenny Paris, who had been quietly listening, thought of Jiang Tian's peerless demeanor when he dominated France. At this moment, she couldn't help but mutter to herself with a face full of reverence. She had actually become infatuated. No, he wasn't hunting. He wasn't trying to show off his strength. He's protecting. Marshall's granddaughter, Rachel, corrected her with a serious face. He fought for the sake of protecting the people of Sidonie who were suffering. He never thought of invading any country. As she spoke, she was moved to tears and said with a choked voice, he is indeed a superpower, but in my heart, he is a hero who fought for justice and light. A hero who fought to liberate Sidonie, to build Sidonie, to protect Sidonie. That night, the name, Jiang Laigua, shook the world and suppressed the world with unparalleled glory. Chapter 658. In South Korea. Li Jianxi from the Xingyue family smiled. Jinju, Mr. Jiang's battle has changed history. He's so strong. He defeated the French army all by himself. Li Jinju's face was glowing. She felt like she was in a dream. In Singapore, Li Xianlong slammed the table and shouted, "Show off our country's might." Did you see that? That's the Grand Tutor of Singapore. He's so much stronger than that old guy Wang Chongyan. In Yanjing, the head of the Song family, Song Bei-shan, received the news. Sidonie will probably become the richest country in the world. Shuangyan was right. The Song family should never provoke him. Sigh, I'm afraid we'll never have the chance to take revenge. Beside him, Lu Zhenghua shook his head and sighed. He's already the true controller of Sidonie. Plus, he pushed Sidonie into the top 5 countries in the world. How terrifying! In Sidonie, at the construction site of the Cass River Bridge. The construction was already finishing, and it would be open to traffic in a week. Zhang San and Li Si, the young men of the 3 heroes ranking manor, were sitting in a simple room with air conditioning. Together with their colleagues, they were watching the news of Tai Chu, leading the 3 armies to sweep through France while eating white steamed buns and red braised pork. Invincible. Long live the god of Tai Chu. Long live Sidonie. France was defeated by the god of Tai Chu. Zhang San waved his fist and cheered excitedly. Time to work. Li Si put the last bite of the steamed bun into his mouth and licked the grease on his fingers. He stood up calmly, washed the dishes, and put them in the cupboard. He put on the clean and neatly folded uniform of the Anju real estate and walked toward the construction site. No one saw that the moment he walked out, his face was covered in tears. Dad, he took revenge for you. That's weird. Is he on steroids? Everyone felt that Li Si's work in the afternoon was 2 to 3 times faster than before. Kang Taechu killed the French blood god, Duke Martel. When this news spread, the entire dark world was in an uproar. Back then, Jiang Tian had killed Zeus, which had already shocked a group of people. Now, it was even more shocking. Back then, when Jiang Tian killed Zeus, it wasn't a smooth victory. Instead, he had to forcefully activate a great divine ability to banish Zeus into eternal exile. Moreover, Jiang Tian was so tired that he vomited blood and grew old. But this time, they saw from the video that Jiang Tian was completely suppressing Martel. It could be said that Martel didn't have the strength to fight back at all. As for Count Dracula, he did not even dare to move. To be honest, when I saw this scene, I couldn't believe it was real. How can Kang Taechu be so strong? Iron Screen's leader sighed on the forum. That's right. Martel, the French blood god, is said to have a lifespan of 700 years and a strong physical body. But look, he's like a 3-year-old child. The alchemist Raging Flame and Hammer was also amazed. Rumor had it that Martel, the French blood god, had once killed the old Zeus and shocked France and Europe for hundreds of years. If it wasn't for the rise of modern weapons and the increasing power of secular governments, his reputation would definitely be on par with the Palace of Gods. Although Kang Tae-chu mainly attacks with his physical body, I suspect that Kang Tae-chu might already have the strength of an earth immortal. The Dark Magician at the scene side. That's the Western Holy King realm. As soon as this was said, the forum was like a pot of cold water poured over hot oil. It was completely boiling. Earth immortal. It was too illusory. It was too mysterious. Human immortals in Huaxia were equivalent to the Western Holy King realm, and Earth immortals were equivalent to the Supreme Holy King. In the East, after the Song dynasty, there were no more Earth immortals. Before that, it was all just rumors. In the West, for thousands of years, there were only a few holy kings, and they were all illusory and untrustworthy. Many people doubted this dark magician's words. They didn't dare to believe it and didn't want to believe it. But this dark magician said with certainty, "You have to know that Martel once killed the old Zeus. His cultivation should be above that of an ordinary holy king. But Kang Tae-chu has imperceptibly suppressed and imprisoned all of Martel's blood clan's secret techniques. If this isn't an earth immortal, then what is? Besides, even if Martel was at his peak, he probably wouldn't be able to fight against the modern French army, right? He killed tens of thousands of people back then, and that was in the era of cold weapons. But Kang Tae-chu can. Could it be that Kang Tae-chu is really going to be invincible in the world? A mercenary king who had been on the royal assassin list several times sighed with a pale face as if he had seen a god. No wonder he dared to speak so harshly to the gathering of darkness and the Holy See. Perhaps the only ones who can suppress him now are the gathering of darkness and the Holy See. Someone speculated, but immediately added another sentence. Even the first generation of vampires can't fight him alone. Only by working together may there be a slim chance of survival. As soon as this remark came out, the entire forum fell into a palpitating silence. Many strong men trembled, and no one dared to say a word. Jiang Tian was unaware of these discussions, and he didn't care. He had already returned triumphantly on the French Air Force One accompanied by the restless Sanchi and Yung. On this day, the entire San Juan was empty. Inside and outside the airport, tens of thousands of people lined the streets to welcome him. The San Juan airport was full of flowers and colorful flags. The sky was blue and the sun was shining brightly. White clouds floated quietly in the sky. On both sides of the airport's runway, in front of the welcoming team were Hu Qingtian, Shen Mange, Zhang Qianlei, and other martial arts strongmen, as well as people from Tianqing School. Behind them were President Chen Yang, Speaker Ander, King Arthur Jr., Archbishop Dashiell, and the soldiers of the Heavenly Army. Behind them were Jiang Tian's family, Zhang Wanqing, Jiang Changeng, Zhao Xueqing, Huang Linger, and others. Outside the San Juan airport, on the airport street, the sidewalk was crowded with men and women, old and young. It was so crowded that one couldn't see the end of it. People wore red flowers on their arms, and the statue of the beginning hung on their chests. Their eyes were looking in the direction of Jiang Tian's car, waiting for Jiang Tian's car to drive over. A silver-haired old black woman held the statue of the beginning with both hands and kept praying, waiting anxiously and patiently. A black worker couple, wearing the uniform of Unju Real Estate, held a child of 7 or 8 years old. A group of black middle school students with tears in their eyes held each other's shoulders, tiptoed, and looked. The wife held the child's hand and walked down the sidewalk, leaning forward to look. The child asked, "Mom, will I see the beginning?" "Yes. He will pass by here." The black mother said. "That's great." The black child said excitedly, "The teacher said that he saved our country and brought us clean water, jobs, houses, and food. The priest in the church said that he is a god and defeated the invaders." Yes, he defeated the invaders. Those French people and those multinational companies have killed many people, many Sidoni people. In the future, it will never happen again. The child's mother said. When I grow up, I want to be like the beginning. I want to build Sidoni and protect Sidoni. The child's face was full of admiration, and his eyes were firm. A plane from France. He should be back. Inside and outside the airport, the crowd was in an uproar. Tens of thousands of people looked up at the sky. They saw an Air France plane crossing the sky and landing slowly in the airport. People were looking forward to it. Godfather, you are finally back safely. I was very worried. In the airport, little Arthur ran to Jiang Tian and threw himself into Jiang Tian's arms. He hugged Jiang Tian's waist, and tears rolled down his cheeks. Little brat, you are so useless. You even cried. What are you worried about? Jiang Tian patted the little guy's head and laughed. What can a few Japanese do to your daddy Jiang? Thank you, the beginning deity. You defeated the invaders and protected Sidoni. Following Dahir's loud shout, the tens of thousands of people present all knelt down and cheered. Thank you, the beginning deity. You defeated the invaders and protected Sidoni. Inside and outside the airport, tens of thousands of voices were heard. There were men, women, old, and young. They were like thunder that shot into the sky, shaking the clouds in the sky. Get up. Jiang Tian stretched out his hands to support them. Thank you, the beginning deity, for protecting our country and our people. You are our God and our hero. Zhang San and Li Si, the two black men, represented the people of Sidoni and offered a wreath. They kowtowed to Jiang Tian 3 times and 9 times. Thank you. Jiang Tian put on the wreath and helped the two of them up. He took the opportunity to give a speech. There has never been a deity. I am not a deity. I am just like everyone else. We are all human. It's just that my strength is stronger than ordinary people. And the strong fight to protect the weak. The blood of the strong should flow for the weak. No matter how strong the strong are, they can't do without the support of the weak. The weak create an environment and material support for the strong to become strong. The two together form an endless civilization system. If there are no weak people, then there are no strong people either. Jiang Tian's speech made the people of Sidoni love and respect for Jiang Tian even more. Jiang Tian swept his gaze over the crowd. His clear and melodious voice clearly entered everyone's ears, stirring up everyone's minds. Today, I fight to protect Sidoni. In the future, I hope that everyone will fight to protect me and my family. Not because I am Kang Te-chu, not because I am the god in your heart. But because I am alone. A part of Sidoni. In Sidoni, everyone is the fire of civilization and the most precious wealth. Let us join hands and fight side by side to build a prosperous and powerful new Sidoni. We are not bellicose, but we are not afraid of fighting. If we fight, we will fight to the death and not retreat a step. Behind us is our home. Hearing Jiang Tian's words, everyone slowly clenched their fists. Their eyes were shining and their bodies were trembling slightly. Everyone felt their blood boiling. Boundless energy and fighting spirit surged within them. A boiling hot thing was brewing in their eyes and hearts. It was like hot magma that had been suppressed for a long time and was about to erupt. Absolute beginning, if there comes a day when you are in danger, I will fight for you until the last drop of blood is shed. Li Si was so excited that his body was trembling. He roared with tears in his eyes. Chapter 659. He had once seen a video in which Jiang Tian braved the rolling artillery fire and went deep into the enemy's territory alone. He pushed back hundreds of miles and forced the French president to admit defeat. He had also seen Jiang Tian dragging thousands of bodies across Europe, which frightened the entire Europe. Those bodies belonged to the Luo family, the culprits who killed his father. Kang Te-chu kept his promise, avenged him and protected Sidoni. Then, he would also fight for Sidoni like Jiang Tian. Me too. Zhang San also shouted. Fight for Taichu. Fight for Sidoni, fight for every one of Sidoni's 600,000 people. Countless people roared at the top of their lungs like wild beasts. Tens of thousands of voices shot to the sky like rockets, as if they were going to tear the sky and shatter the earth. What a terrifying nation! Many European Union officials who didn't dare to come out of the cabin turned pale and trembled in fear. This is the centralization of power. This is the terrifying thought control, the standard of a backward nation. President Jung of the European Union curled his lips and shook his head, seemingly disdainful, but there was a flash of envy deep in his eyes. When Jiang Tian got on the black car with the red flag and drove out of the airport towards the Taiqing sect, thousands of people's hearts were stirred. Wherever the car passed, the old people, young people, children. Countless people rushed to kneel on the ground, cheering, praying and worshipping. Every time Jiang Tian lowered the window and waved to the crowd, some people fainted out of excitement. Ha, old Jiang, you're quite good at this. Zhang Qianlei smiled and said. 100 miles long street and 10,000 people welcoming me. Even when I became the Grand Preceptor, I didn't have such a grand lineup. Ha, the Grand Preceptor of your decadent regime is unpopular. What kind of lineup is that? Jiang Tian picked up a glass of red wine, took a sip and said with a disdainful smile. This red flag car was a custom-made model from Huaxia. There was a freezer, a wine cabinet, a red wine cabinet, a TV system, a leather massage chair, and all sorts of other equipment in the car. Show off. Zhang Qianlei rolled his eyes and sneered, Old Jiang, I admire your ability to fool people. Look at how you made those Sidoni black people act as if they saw their father. What trick? The part at the airport, Zhang Qianlei said with a smile, Meryl and the others are streaming it live on the internet. The people outside the airport who picked you up saw it too. The effect is really good. Brother Lei, if I say that I'm telling the truth and not trying to trick you, would you believe me? Jiang Tian asked calmly. Like hell I'll believe you. Zhang Qianlei bared his teeth and said, What era is this? Who still believes in such nonsense? It's simply laughable. Which of the experts and cultivators of today doesn't view human lives as worthless ants? They take and kill as they please. And when they encounter a real superpower, they immediately cower and hibernate like rats. Not to mention fighting to protect the weak, they don't even dare to fight for their own dignity and interests. Don't laugh at them. In your eyes, they are cowards, but they think that they are preserving their strength and waiting for the right time. Only idiots would fight head-on with a superpower. Isn't it good to bully ordinary people, plunder their wealth, or be the dogs of a superpower and enjoy the glory and wealth? Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, In the depths of the universe, many human cultivators act according to the bottom line of cultivators. What, bottom line? Zhang Qianlei was puzzled. Yes, not running away, fighting for the weak, guarding your sect, your country, that is the bottom line. A trace of profoundness appeared in Jiang Tian's eyes as he sighed and said, The universe is vast and the sea of stars is boundless. In addition to us humans, there are many other powerful races, demons, devils, extraterrestrial devils, and all kinds of bizarre alien races. In the universe, the reason why humans can conquer these unorthodox demons and stand at the pinnacle of the universe is precisely because of the unity of cultivators and ordinary people, living and dying together, fighting side by side. Although cultivators are powerful, their lifespans are short. Their lifespans are long, but their numbers are too small. They will always be 1 in 10,000. Although ordinary people are weak in battle, they are numerous in number and have strong reproductive ability. They can support a large-scale interstellar civilization that spans the star field. Not to mention, the vast majority of cultivators were born from ordinary people. And among the descendants of cultivators, a large portion of them are ordinary people. For example, cultivators are fish, and ordinary people are water. Cultivators are trees, and ordinary people are soil and earth. In short, the huge number of ordinary people is the foundation that supports the cultivation civilization. Without ordinary people, the cultivation civilization will completely collapse. In the human cultivation countries and planets, especially in the more developed cultivation civilizations, there are many super-large magical artifacts. Although they are designed and refined by cultivators, they still require the assistance of thousands of ordinary workers during the manufacturing process. Not to mention the series of cultivation civilization systems that support them, which are all established by ordinary people. Jiang Tian said seriously. What I said was not a bluff, but the most important idea that I formed after many years of drifting in the outer space. You are so serious that I am not used to it. Zhang Qianlei smiled and did not say anything else. However, there was a thoughtful look on his face. At this moment, Chen Yang came over and reported, Master, in the past week, we have made a profit of $80 billion by shorting the euro, as well as shorting the French CAC 40 index and other stock index futures. Besides, we have also taken control of 30% of the shares of the three largest automobile companies in France, a supermarket chain, a natural gas company, and 20% of the chips of the French National Nuclear Corporation. However, France is in chaos right now. The stock market is closed. We have to stop here. Chen Yang's tone was a little bit excited, but also a little bit disappointed. He was excited because they had made a profit of $50 billion by shorting the French stock index in New York in just 1 week. It was a pity that their control over some of the core companies in France had not reached their target yet. If the French stock market could still trade normally, they would have been able to control the top 10 companies in France, which meant that they had control over the economic lifeline of France. The attack this time had used all of Jiang Tian's funds. All of Jiang Tian's business and political alliances had participated in the battle, too. In the United States, Chen Jinming's One-Eye Fund led by Wall Street, the Marshall family, the Hilton family, and dozens of other big families and enterprises in California participated in the attack. In Southeast Asia, Li Xianlong's family and the Singapore Chinese Society were involved. In Japan, the Fucking Gang and the Sakura Society led the attack. The Mitsui Group and other tycoons also invested in the attack. It could be said that this financial attack involved Africa, Asia, and America. Hundreds of big families, tycoons, and large enterprises were the main force. The total amount of funds used was more than $200 billion. From military, politics, economy, and finance, the attack had been successful. If the truth was revealed, this battle would be recorded in history. It would surpass Soros's attack on the British pound, Southeast Asia, and the Asian financial crisis. Soros had seen the internal contradictions and loopholes in Southeast Asia's financial system and exchange rate system. He was only the catalyst. Jiang Tian's attack was even more sinister. Brazenly mobilizing troops, military strikes, and subverting French politics as a means to seize economic and political benefits. Very good. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, not minding at all. He had attacked France to create a good environment for Sidonie's development. He didn't think there was anything wrong with destroying the Louvre. The oil paintings in France were beautiful. Buildings were a kind of civilization. But was Sidonie's environment not important? The lives and health of the people were not important. He had negotiated with them in accordance with international law, but they were acting like hooligans. How dare you act like a hooligan in front of me? How dare you? Very well, I will beat you until you cry. As for making money, it was just a matter of convenience. You and Yiziwei will negotiate with the European Union and let the Medicine King Group enter the European market. Also, the Sheng Essence Immortal Healing Village has started to recruit people from around the world. Jiang Tian said. Yes, Master. Chen Yang was energized and quickly bowed. Once the Sheng Essence Immortal Healing Village opened, it would attract countless tycoons and scientists from around the world. They would flock to Sidonie. By then, Sidonie would not only be a rich country, but also a powerful one, comparable to the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. After returning to the Taiqing sect, Jiang Tian went to the central hall and sat on the throne. Below the stage, the members stood respectfully and waited for his orders. Sasaki Kaisha, you will be rewarded according to your contributions. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and glanced at everyone. Then, he raised his right hand. Splash! Many spoils of war fell to the ground like a waterfall, drowning half of the hall. Martel was known as the blood god of France. He had lived for 700 years and had plundered a lot of gold, diamonds, gems, antiques and jades in France and half of Europe. Jiang Tian chased after Martel's descendants all the way and excavated several treasure vaults, gaining quite a lot. The worldly wealth was naturally left to the Medicine King group. Then, Jiang Tian gave them a few Dharma treasures. God-killing spear. It was a spear used by a dark mage who was on good terms with Martel. It came from the hands of an ancient alchemist and was inscribed with mysterious curse patterns. It was incomparably sharp and could pierce through a tank with a single strike. Crimson blade. It was a long sword used by a blood race earl. It was filled with the blood of 10,000 people. It had killed a saint and had the ability to swallow blood. It was quite terrifying. Thor's hammer. It was the spoils of war of the blood race. They couldn't use it themselves. It was said that it was used by a red-robed cardinal. They took it after killing the cardinal. There were a few thunder crystals embedded in it, which had powerful lightning energy. It was even more powerful than Zeus's scepter. There were many weapons and treasures, all of which were real Dharma treasures. They were piled up like a mountain and dazzled people. Some even had spirituality and were close to spirit artifacts. But what really caught Jiang Tian's attention was a finger bone. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.